I'd like to welcome back to the stage Corey DeAngelis, parental rights activist and author of The Parent Revolution. Hey, Ryan, how are you? Great. Aaron Wyth, he is the CEO of Freedom Foundation. I know. And Ryan Walters, former Oklahoma superintendent. Yes, indeed. And now he is the CEO of the newly launched Teacher Freedom Alliance that was just launched by Freedom Foundation. All right. So to kick this off, I think it's good for us to have a little reminder of just how bad the teachers' unions really are, because we also have to go back and persuade our neighbors who maybe have gone back to sleep or they don't really know at all. So let's start with Corey. Corey, you started by sharing up here about the most recent new business items of the NEA, which is one of the top teachers' unions in the country. You shared some of the shocking things. Can you share a few more that they passed? By the way, none of them had to do with improving academics. That should tell you something right there. So share a few more with us.
I will say these chairs are very comfortable, so great job, Monster Liberty. I was like almost like falling back into it. But yeah, I shared one earlier, but they passed a ton that I leaked onto X. I also shared their handbook, which was like 434 pages, and they scrubbed it from the internet. And then I was like, aha, I saved it to the Internet Archive. I gotcha. And at the Internet Archive actually removed it after that. I'm like, how much pull do they actually have? The Wayback Machine actually DM'd me on X and was like, no, this is a mistake. We'll put it back. We'll put it back. After they got called out, it went back on. But they were talking about white supremacy culture, whatever that is. They were crapping on homeschooling, saying that they weren't properly educating kids. I mean, don't throw stones if you live in a glass house. You have places like Chicago that have 55 public schools, 55 of them with not a single kid proficient in math. 0 kids proficient in math in 55 public schools in Chicago, and they spend $30,000 per student per year. But they also passed a resolution at their 2025 annual convention to get around the recent Supreme Court victory that Tina alluded to this morning, Mahmoud v. Taylor, that allows families to opt their children out of gender insanity that's happening in the classroom, allows them to pull their kids out.
Yeah.
So one last, in their infinite wisdom, they said, okay, well, we're gonna spend $200,000 to not listen to that democratic institution that we call the Supreme Court. We're going to try to get around democracy. That sounds like a threat to democracy to me. It almost sounds like an insurrection. And instead of just listening to them, they said we're going to train teachers to say we're going to continue to force our gender ideology into the classroom. Here's how you can get around the ruling. And they're not listening to parents. They're trying to wedge themselves between parents and their children. But thankfully, we have Monster Liberty to say, not today, Satan.
And I do think it's striking that there was nothing about academics in the NEA new business items when right now less than half of our students are proficient in math, less than 1/3 are proficient in reading. Time for them to reprioritize.
Well, Deborah, this year they didn't have anything to do with education, but in 2019 I released on X a separate one where they were going to put up for a vote a resolution to realign the NEA's mission to being about education. Seems like they should pass such a resolution. It went down in flames.
Yeah.
So they're telling us their priorities, they're showing their true colors, and they elevated this year one person out of 3 million members as their teacher of the year from Pennsylvania. What did she say when she had a couple minutes on stage? She let the mask slip and she said that her job as a teacher of all things is deeply political and always has been. Yeah. If that's not free advertising for homeschooling, I don't know what is.
Absolutely, and I want to share also so the moms here can go out and be really prepared. The biggest myth is that the teachers' unions support the teachers, and everyone gets played upon about the pay for teachers being down. Despite the teachers' unions collecting nearly $380 million in dues this year, teachers' pay is stagnating. You shared this statistic in our documentary. Can you share where the money is actually going as far as the employees in the district?
It's not going towards the kids.
Yeah.
So we have data from 2000 till today. The number of students in the system has been basically flat. And that's mostly because the unions fought to close the schools, parents left, and about 1 million kids have left the government school system since 2019. Thank you, Randy. And thank you, Becky Pringle, as well. But while student enrollment has been flat, the teachers in the system have increased by about 10%, but the administrators in the system have increased by 95%. 95%. That's why I said earlier the government school system has become a jobs program for administrators, not an education initiative for kids. You have people like Randy making over $600,000 a year. Same thing with Becky Pringle, over $500,000, which, by the way, her union, the NEA, has a federal charter, has the backing of Congress, the only one in the country that has this special privilege. And lawmakers right now, based on feedback from Moms for Liberty and other advocates, have a bill in Congress to yank their federal charter once and for all.
Well, great. One more question before I want to continue this as far as the problems with unions with Aaron and Ryan here.
Yeah, I don't want to take up all the time.
We could have each one of these gentlemen for an entire hour, by the way.
We got a team.
I want to bring up Randy Weingarten's new book, who, by the way, criticizes Moms for Liberty as one of her #1 targets. My husband's an 82nd Airborne veteran. He always says if you're not taking flak, you're not over the target. So we're all over the target right now. And she's trying to say now that the unions had nothing to do with the shutdown, and maybe she could have worked a little bit harder to prevent it.
Yeah.
What is the truth of what the teachers' unions did to cause the shutdown and extend it?
I'm calling BS. Everybody else in the room is calling BS right now as well. She went before Congress and tried to gaslight the American public and said, actually, we were fighting to reopen the schools. Well, if that's true, if you were trying so hard to do so, well, then why weren't they open? Why were the private schools open? Why were parents trying to figure things out with homeschooling and trying to pay out of pocket for the private schools in addition to the government school system that was closed? You had the Chicago Teachers Union, had a board member vacationing in Puerto Rico in person while saying it was too difficult and too unsafe to go back to work in person. You had them opening schools for daycare, but then closing schools for education. I mean, COVID must have been smart. It knows if you're learning something, it's going to activate, it's going to get you. It's because they use that as a political tool, as leverage at the bargaining table to hold children's education hostage, to secure $190 billion in ransom payments from taxpayers. Well, they won in the short run, but they're losing in the long run because of school choice victories, because of Moms for Liberty fighting back for their parental rights in education, and because of people like this getting teachers to say, no more, we're leaving the union, you don't represent us, and we have an alternative. So I want to turn it over to them as well.
Thank you, Corey. Appreciate that. So, Aaron, Freedom Foundation has been focused on helping government employees leave those unions, and part of that is teachers' unions, obviously. Can you talk about, first of all, what's the problem with government unions? It's different than private unions. Can you talk about what the issue is there?
Yeah, Corey talks about it specifically with the teachers' unions, but government unions generally, I mean, think about it like this. They never should have been created. You have a government union that takes money from public employees, funnels it into liberal politicians that go out and raise taxes on the private sector, on people like you, so they can hire more bureaucrats, take more union dues. Make no mistake, government unions are a business, and their business is growing money and growing power. They've been able to do that over the course of the last 70 years. So when we talk about freeing teachers, when we talk about unraveling the teachers' unions, this is a long game. This is a multi-billion-dollar monopoly that we're fighting in the teachers' unions today that has a total monopoly on our public education system today.
And when we talk about where the money goes, always that term, follow the money. Can you share where teachers' union money goes politically?
Yeah, so let's use the NEA, for example. They make about $350 million a year in union dues. Under 10% of their budget is spent on representational activities. That's money that's meant to be representing teachers. Most of it goes towards lobbying. It goes in political gifts. And guess where the political gifts go? It's not to my friend Ryan Walters when he was running for office. It's going to radical liberal Democrats that will go in and raise taxes like Brandon Johnson in Chicago. And then the rest of it's spent on lavish salaries and benefit packages for their internal staff. So when you talk about the agenda of the teachers' unions, Deborah referenced it, you've got to follow the money. And their money is far less significant in the representing teachers than it is in their political agenda.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, Ryan, not only were you the superintendent in Oklahoma, but you were also a teacher. We're pro-teacher here, pro-parent, pro-student, the golden triangle of education. And I often look at good teachers, and we interviewed so many for our documentary, and it's almost like Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, they are terrorized within their own schools. Can you talk about some of those tactics that the teachers' unions do to intimidate good teachers?
No, that's right. You know, to be clear, there's no bigger enemy to parents. There's no better enemy to good teachers, and there's no bigger enemy to this country than the teachers' union. The teachers' union has weaponized its money and its power to try to turn our schools into Marxist indoctrination centers. And they're crystal clear about that. If you're a teacher, you leave the union, we're going to target you. If you're a parent, you show up at a school board meeting, we're going to target you. We will not allow our power structure to move, to change. It's why we created the Teacher Freedom Alliance, to say, teachers, we don't only want you to leave, we've got your back. Right. Go make our classrooms great again. Let's get back to education, not indoctrination. Let's put parents back in charge of their kids' education. You all know, any good teacher would tell you, we want the parents involved. We want the parents to play the most major role in their kids' lives as possible. We've got to get those teachers back in our schools. We've got to get them back controlling what's going on rather than the teachers union and saying, listen, we're here to bring the parents back in and to be clear about what the teachers unions do. You guys see the No Kings protests going on? Did you know that the NEA and AFT are funding those? Yeah. They are funding to fight President Trump. And again, I can't applaud President Trump more for abolishing the Department of Ed. That's great, isn't it? Isn't that awesome? But folks, I also bring you a warning. If you eliminate the Federal Department of Education and don't defeat the teachers' unions, they will step into that power vacuum. They will continue to control our schools. They will continue to attack you, the parents. They will continue to attack any teacher that actually has common sense and wants to just teach math and not DEI and 27 genders. So folks, we have to defeat the unions. Moms for Liberty, thank you for what you're doing for our kids. The fight is going strong, but we have got to continue to defeat these unions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ryan. And a great point to share, and I shared this with a friend, kind of a friend, used to be a friend who's left of center, and they asked about the appearance, the Department of Education, and I said, you know, that was a backroom deal between Jimmy Carter and the teachers unions in 1979. There was a purpose and a reason why they did it, so it's the first step in it is getting rid of the Department of Education, but there's work to do. Aaron, I want to talk now a little bit about solutions, because even though we're talking about this power and this behemoth, this is an exciting time and real change is happening, and we are the ones that are going to finish the job. So let's talk about some solutions. So defunding the teachers union is really about, Aaron, this question is for you, about empowering teachers to leave. Now, prior to forming Teachers Freedom Alliance, Freedom Foundation has been doing this. Talk a little bit about how you are getting people to leave these unions and what kind of success you've seen so far.
Yeah, the Freedom Foundation has now a four-pronged approach to defunding the teachers' unions and government unions generally. The way that you defund any business is by getting their revenue at the source. In this instance, the members. So we've weaponized a group of canvassers that go around the country. They visit people's homes. They visit people's offices if they're not teachers. They go around the country telling people to get out of the unions. We send them millions of mail pieces, digital marketing campaigns. I mean, you name it, to tell people to get out of the unions, we're doing it. Since 2020, since we've been operating that campaign nationally, we've seen the largest decline of union membership in U.S. history. We've never seen rates like this before. It's going down year over year over year, including teachers in the NEA. The second thing that we do is we litigate. I've got 10 attorneys on staff. All they do is sue unions. That's their full-time job.
Very good.
Yeah. The third thing that we do is we help states pass legislation that target teachers' unions. Florida is probably the best example of this in recent years. They eliminated the government's ability to take union dues from teachers' paychecks. 20,000 teachers opted out of their union following that legislation. That's a big deal. Also, we made it so when union membership falls below 60% in a school district, it triggers a decertification vote in the district. And then the fourth thing that we did when we heard from teachers across the country, in Portland, Oregon, in Orlando, Florida, wherever they were, we're alone. I'm the only person that's left by union. There are no other resources that exist. That's when we created the Teacher Freedom Alliance, and that's when we hired Ryan Walters to go bring the heat.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Ryan, you shared a little bit about the Teachers Freedom Alliance. Can you talk a little bit more practically, because it offers so much for teachers, including replacing what they think they get from the union, but in a free way. Can you talk a little bit more about the mission and the actual steps?
So what we looked at is very similar to what you all have done with Moms for Liberty. You want to fight back. You want to get the schools back on track. If you're a teacher and you leave the union, I've heard so many stories around the room tonight, you have a good teacher that tells you, I don't want to teach this. I don't want to do this. But what happens if I don't? What happens if I leave the union? They're going to try to fire me. They're going to try to sue me. I won't be able to get a job somewhere else. So we don't only get teachers out of the union. We've got thousands of members across the country, and what we're saying is we're building a community of how to fight back. We'll give you all the trainings you need academically. You don't have to go begging the union to get your professional development hours and sit into a class where they're going to tell you to hate this country. No. We will help you with honing your craft. We will help you get all those professional development hours, and we're going to teach you how to fight back. We're going to teach you how to fight back against the union tactics. We're going to teach you how to partner with parents. We're going to find the ways to have this great partnership that we used to have in schools, one that valued the role of the parent, one that understood that the more the parents are involved, the better their kids' education will be. So we're creating a teacher army, folks, to go take the classroom back, to partner with parents, because it's very clear, this is a war for the future of our country. It's in the classrooms. The Marxists took the battlefront there. We've got to take them back. And we're working with teachers to say, listen, I want to get back to academics. That's what I want. How do I do that? Well, we're going to help them do that, and we want to partner with you to do that.
That's great. Thank you, Ryan. Before I get to the last statement by each one of you, Aaron, what can moms here and dads who are here do to help a teacher they know? Because really, we can be a conduit to someone who doesn't know there's an alternative.
Yeah, Ryan mentioned it. This isn't going to get solved at the federal level. You all know teachers. You have to help teachers across the country. The best messengers for this are other teachers and you guys, the parents. So you've got to tell teachers, you don't have to be forced to belong to a union. This union does not represent your values. It certainly doesn't represent my kids' values. You've got to tell them to leave, tell them to go to optouttoday.com, and then tell them to join the Teacher Freedom Alliance.
That's great. Well, let's go down the line. In the last few minutes we have here, I want each one of you to share something you would like to have as a charge or encourage the amazing moms that are here in this room.
Tell teachers to join the Teacher Freedom Alliance. I mean, look, school choice I've been fighting for a long time. That incentivizes the monopoly to do a better job. It incentivizes the district to do a better job. Teacher Freedom Alliance provides competition for the unions to get them to focus more on the members as opposed to being focused on a far-left radical agenda that they're trying to push down children's throats in the classroom. And so teachers, Moms for Liberty, maybe start pushing people and creating a Teachers for Liberty with the Teacher Freedom Alliance. I think that would be a fantastic idea. And you guys already have teachers as members as well. So this is a great alternative to the unions to get them to change. And I'll just tell a quick story. I was listening to a radio hit with Randi Weingarten promoting her book, by the way, which she copied my cover. She said on a podcast that she didn't copy it. She swears up and down she didn't plagiarize it.
That's
but
the only smart thing she's done, by the way.
You gotta, yeah, it's a great color scheme. I'll tell you that in the font. But she's basically calling conservatives fascists right now. The title of her book, Quadrupling Down on this divisive rhetoric, trying to pull society apart. I thought the public school system was about creating a more cohesive society. She's doing the exact opposite, and she's putting targets on our backs as well. And so she told this radio caller that was a public school teacher in New York City that he was complaining about the Zohran Mamdani endorsement from the UFT, their affiliate in New York State. And Randi Weingarten said that the union can be as political as it wants to be. It's a union. It can give all of its money to the Democrats if it wants. But if you don't like it, well, then you can leave. You can stop funding them. Okay, well, let's take Randi Weingarten's advice for once. That is the first time that she actually said something smart. And so teachers, if you don't want to give your money to this one-sided political operation, this money laundering operation called the Teachers Union, for the Democrat Party. It's up to you to opt out, to fight them and bring the union to their knees once and for all, and get them to listen to parents and teachers as well, to make our country better, to make education great again.
So happy Inseminated Persons Day, right? That's the new thing, according to my governor, Governor Evers, who has erased the word mother and has now replaced it with Inseminated person, yes. And there's a lot of denial going on. Denial's not just a river in Egypt. I even heard reporting that there are, like, U.S. News and World Report journalists are going around trying to say, like, do you have proof that Governor Evers was changing the word mother into inseminated person in statute? And as they were asking that, they sent over a copy of that statute being rewritten, which I am going to share my screen and post right now, because you should always have the receipts. So I put this on, of course, my X account. And one second. Okay, sharing screen. Okay, so you can see right here, I posted this on X. First of all, I want to give credit to Representative Amanda Nedweski. And it was she who first discovered that several times in the most recent budget proposal by my Democrat governor, Governor Tony Evers, he had crossed out the word mother and put inseminated person, or person who is pregnant. Again, not mother, not woman, not wife. All of those terms are gone. And if you look close, it says that striked out the word the mother at least 30 times, and the word husband, I believe, 120 times in the 1,917 page document. And here we can see this, the mother, parent who gave birth, father, natural parent who did not give birth. So I'm a parent who gave birth. Yeah. So let's see some other, and you can see here, wife, person, and then man, person who, a man, person who is not the spouse of the person being inseminated. And right here, mother is inseminated person. And you can see this is Assembly Bill 50, Section 3106, page number, everything. So here's the proof. They need to stop lying. Yes, Governor Evers, you really stepped in it. You erased mothers, or you tried to, and called us inseminated persons, persons who could be inseminated, persons who gave birth. We're also persons who bleed, because obviously men can have periods now, right? Wrong. No. There are two sexes, only two, male, female, and only females can give birth. Only females have ovaries and they have a uterus. Only females can experience childbirth and deliver a child. That's only females, women, mothers. So, yeah, apparently he was a science teacher, and no wonder Wisconsin students are not doing so well since he has been in charge, and since State Superintendent Jill Underly has been running education in Wisconsin. The most recent NAEP scores, our kids in Wisconsin, only a third of them can read at grade level. And in Milwaukee, only 5% of Black children can read at grade level. So they're just doing a bang up job. Maybe they should stop focusing on woke gender ideology, and they should start focusing on teaching children to read. That should be the focus. And again, we've got the proof. Governor Evers, you made Wisconsin a laughingstock. This is the most embarrassing thing this has been just viral on X, on all social media, on all the news shows. Since Friday night, this has been just widely spread. Elon Musk, libs of TikTok, every major, news source has been talking about this. So What we have to remember, what is really important to remember, is what these woke, crazy people would do if they had the power to do it. Now, this is not going to pass in Wisconsin Assembly or Senate because right now Republicans, sane people, have control of both of those state houses. But if they didn't, I can guarantee that, like Minnesota, like California, like what just happened in Maryland, Maine, if Republicans did not have the majority in those two state houses in Wisconsin, what Governor Evers just did would be passed and mother would be removed from Wisconsin statute. Mothers would no longer exist in Wisconsin statute. They would be erased. They would be wiped out. They would be reduced and dehumanized into inseminated persons. That should make all women angry. Left, right, whatever. All women should be angry at that. There's no excuse for it. There's none. There's no excuse. And my goodness, please, 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 please don't say that men can get pregnant. Okay, they can't. They can't. Just because a woman is experiencing some sort of dysphoria and wants to pretend that she's a man doesn't actually make that so. Her ability to get pregnant is proof that she is a biological woman. And gender identity is a made-up thing. Okay, like until 5 minutes ago, we all understood there was only two sexes. And yes, there's this rare case of something with intersex. That is, I don't want to even go into that, but that is not the same thing as having a whole nother third biological sex. Okay, that's just not the case. And no one's going to die if we deny them the ability to identify as a tree or a cat or a rock or a unicorn or a biological sex that they are not. As a matter of fact, I think a heavy dose of biological reality will save lives and will, boy, there'll be a lot less stress. I'm so sick of this. I would rather be talking about something else. I mean, this whole like we want to destabilize society thing, can't you just give it a break? Like, come on. Can you just like, I don't know, I don't know what to say. Just stop going on TikTok, stop listening to crazy people, and go get some help and accept the fact that the genitalia you have when you're born is not your sex assigned at birth. It's your sex assigned by God. All right, that's all I have to say about that.
Hi, everyone. This is Scarlett Johnson with Unleashed, presented by Moms for Liberty. And with me is special guest back on again, former Oklahoma State Superintendent and now CEO of the Teacher Freedom Alliance. The Teacher Freedom Alliance is a brand new effort launched with the Freedom Foundation to finally give teachers an alternative to the radical union machine. And when we say radical, we mean it, because last week there was an explosive report revealed by Defending Education about the NEA, the National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union, I think the largest public sector union, maybe it's definitely the largest teachers union, right, Ryan, in the country, has 3 million members and is the only one with a federal charter. And it was just explosive what we learned, that their focus in December at a conference is going to be almost exclusively gender ideology. And so I wanted to bring Ryan on to discuss it, as he is an expert in this field. So Ryan, thanks for coming on and talking to us about this explosive report and what it means.
No, thank you. And, Scarlett, it's just another day, another, scheme from the left-wing teachers union. And I want to give Defending Ed a lot of credit, great deep dive into this, of really uncovering these documents, because we've really seen it. And Moms for Liberty, y'all done a great job of exposing it, but they really try to operate in secrecy, where you don't see what all their trainings are. You don't see what all they're telling teachers union members behind closed doors. But this really gives us a great look into this is what they're telling teachers to do in the classroom.
Yes, and I'm going to put some of this on stage. So here is one of the handouts, the participant handouts, Advancing LGBTQ plus Justice and Transgender Advocacy. Particularly after Mahmoud, that most recent decision, you would think that they might pull back, but instead they're doubling down. They're all in on this gender ideology.
And I think it's so important for everyone to understand. And I know that all the moms out there get this at a level that many don't, but they don't go away. They don't, once they're exposed, they don't stop. They continue to find ways to inject this in the classroom, because again, this is their ideology. Frankly, it is their religion. They believe that promoting transgenderism in our schools, promoting every left-wing advocacy is really their role. You hear Randi Weingarten, frankly, she's been more open about this than she has in the past. Their goal is to become social justice warriors in the classroom and create more of them. And so what they do is, again, when you look at their trainings, when you look at what they're actually doing to teachers, it's not bringing in, how do you do high dosage tutoring? It's not, when a kid doesn't understand the basics in math, what are the best practices to catch them back up? That's not the trainings that they're doing. It's not their point of emphasis. Their point of emphasis is, teachers, we're going to train you to be an arm of the Democrat Party. And by the way, I say an arm of the Democrat Party. I would say this is even the most radical elements of the Democrat Party. You even have some Democrats going, okay, guys, not in schools, right? Like, let's not, that's a bridge too far. No, the NEA goes, no. Our role in our schools is to indoctrinate the next generation, to win elections, and to continue this power structure and turn this country further left. And so you see it here in these documents. Again, there's not reading, math, history, science. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about them saying, we're going to teach you how to advocate for transgender ideology, kindergarten all the way through high school. How do you start making kids at the youngest of ages believe this is acceptable, start buying into these lies about changing gender, all the way up through high school, and then pushing this content. And again, you see, when this is partnered with what's going on in higher ed, we know how bad the college and university system is with Marxism. I mean, these kids don't have much of a shot once they enter in this line of indoctrination, starting off you're looking at kids as young as 3 and 4 that start having this injected on them all the way up into their 20s. That's nearly 20 years of indoctrination we're talking about here.
Yes, they bring in images of the gender unicorn, where they talk about gender expression, gender expansion. And the gender unicorn is a cartoonish character meant for preschoolers 3 and 4 years old. They have a pronoun guide. That's the first thing you see. This is a guide for NEA leaders, members, and staff to better understand and use pronouns in a respectful way at all NEA meetings and communications. So they're talking about how they're going to force the members to use pronouns. They're going to force teachers to and educators to compel. They're going to compel speech. And that's in spite of a recent decision, a federal appellate court decision in Ohio, again, with Defending Ed, specifically said that they could not compel the speech of teachers. And these teachers are going to get a huge settlement. They still don't care. They're still like, well, we're going to compel the pronoun use. We're going to teach them how to be effective LGBTQIA plus advocates, not how to be more effective teachers in the classroom, not how can we raise these abysmal testing scores. No, how can we better train you to be foot soldiers for social justice?
And that's what I think is so key for people to understand about the teachers union. It is bullying folks to join. They tell teachers they have to join. They won't have protections if they don't join. They won't get their contract signed if they don't join. All of these lies, they get them in the union, and this is what they push on them. This is what they require of them. These are the trainings that go on there. So again, you've got the bullying tactics of forcing teachers to join, which again is part of what the Teacher Freedom Alliance we're fighting against. But then secondly, you look at what they're doing here. It is absolutely intentional. And Scarlett, you know, I'm a history teacher is my former background. You know, it's amazing because they know what they're doing. It is absolutely trying to train this in our kids at the youngest grades. I'm reminded of Rudyard Kipling. He wrote The Jungle Book.
Yes.
He also wrote an incredible poem that every student should be reading called The Gods of the Copybook Headings. And they talk about, you know, hey, in British education, they used to make you memorize things like Bible verses and moral quotes every day because they knew at the youngest of ages, driving in that morality is important, that the basics in education are important for the later stages where you do a deeper dive. And then in that poem, they warn about, well, if you teach them the wrong lessons at the earliest age, you're actually sending them on this really terrible path. And you're seeing that play out here. So again, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing is conditioning kids from the earliest ages to be obsessed with sexuality, to be obsessed with being gay or lesbian, being obsessed with transgenderism. So then when they get older, they can push this ideology even further. And you continue to see in this breakdown of documents, it starts with the unicorn pushing sexuality and homosexuality at the earliest grades, and it gets even more aggressive as they get older.
Yes, they supply the Cornell University Transgender Guide to Transitioning and Gender Affirmation in the Workplace. This is just crazy. This is insane. And they use that you're a former history teacher. In the cover, they use words like liberating, inclusive and liberating, referencing liberation, like the liberation movement and liberation ideology. There's liberated ethnic studies. It's a new form of history in which we don't actually teach kids any history. We teach them about oppression. We teach them, you know, the history through the lens of like Howard Zinn. So what? Maybe you could enlighten about this whole liberation ideology and liberated ethnic studies and how it's so corrosive.
I'm glad you brought that up. Again, Scarlett, you know all this frontwards and backwards, but to tell your audience, you know, as a history teacher, to give you some context here, the most prominent history book in American schools, K-12 and college, was a book by Howard Zinn called The People's History of the United States. And what that book was, it was basically a total reversal of the way, you know, 30 or 40 years ago, if you went into a K-12 school, you were going to be taught about the founders, right? You were going to be taught about these values that they believed in, the principles America was founded on, the Declaration of Independence. What did that mean? What was different about the American experiment as compared to Europe, as compared to other places around the country? That is not Howard Zinn's history of America. Howard Zinn's history of America is that America is a terrible place, full of oppression. It's not redeemable. It's not valuable. We have to look at it from the lens. And again, it's critical race theory. Everything is bad. Everything is about oppression. Everything is about slavery. Everything is about America wanting to gain in power at the expense of different people groups. So that's what your kids, that is what this next generation has been reading in schools. Again, it's a very different view of history. And again, great point there. What they do is they take terms like liberate, they take terms like freedom, they take terms like individual rights, and they morph it into all about sexuality, homosexuality, transgenderism. That's not what was being talked about in the 1700s and 1800s in America. You're not going to find that in Jefferson's letters. But what they do is they warp American history into being this very anti-American view, very much, and America is always the bad guy. Most Americans were bad. And then they shift it into really what these terms are about, or should be about, is about sexuality, transgenderism, when in reality, that wasn't part of these discussions at all. You're not going to find that in the Federalist Papers. You're not going to find that in history. But that is what they have done to indoctrinate the next generation moving forward.
They're not going to be learned. They don't know what the Federalist Papers are, but if you looking at right now, I have on screen the National Chicano Moratorium. This is an example lesson plan of liberated ethnic studies. This would be what an incoming freshman would learn. And it says the purpose of this lesson is to bring about a critical historical consciousness of the national Chicano movement. And you could, there's all these buzzwords, which you know, Ryan, when you're in education: critical, consciousness, liberation, all of this, it's kind of code words for this cultural Marxist view. And it sounds good, liberation, but liberation and liberty are very different things.
That's right. And what you continue to see is them change their terminology once we uncover what the terminology means. Remember, it was critical race theory about 10 years ago. Then they changed it into DEI. Now they're changing it into inclusivity and liberation. So what you continue to see is the left playing word games to try to keep parents in the dark of, oh, no, we don't do critical race theory. No, we don't do DEI. No, look at the lessons themselves. It's the same content. America bad. America's always the evildoer in these stories. And again, they continue to promote this victimology in the classroom of, hey, if you're a student that's a minority, if you're a female, America is out to get you. And that is very, first of all, it's wrong, right? Number two, it's very detrimental to your kids, because again, if your kids grow up believing that this country has always been at war with them or fighting them or attacking them, they're not obviously going to be patriotic. They're obviously not going to love this country. They're obviously not going to have an understanding and a love for the principles our country was founded on, which history shows us have led us on the path to be the greatest country in the history of the world. That's the type of education they should be receiving and understanding. But instead, it is a hatred for America. It is a hatred for so many of the values that cause this country to be great. And this is what we're talking about when you see these kids and you see, we were, I can't even say the words the kids were using here on air, but in North Carolina, the things they were saying about ICE agents in America, these protests in the schools. Well, guys, that didn't happen by accident. The kids didn't walk in one day and say, oh, I think America is evil. I think all of our policies, I think President Trump and conservatives are evil. What happened is they were indoctrinated over time to believe that if you're a conservative, if you're someone that frankly just has common sense, you're a fascist, you're evil. And you see the kids reacting to what they've been indoctrinated with.
Yes. I know 5 years ago, we would talk about critical race theory and they'd say, oh, we don't have critical race theory. What are you talking about? Well, they had coined equity. So now equity was actually critical race theory, and you had to fully understand and really go to the professional development to understand what they're doing. And now the equity has now been that word has been exposed. They'll come up with a new word: belonging, like you said, inclusion. It's always going to be a word salad, but they're not going anywhere. So the National Education Association is the largest teachers union in the United States, 3 million members. This summer, Becky Pringle gave a keynote speech, in which she looked like she was about to start dancing around with a snake, like snakes. It was like a tent revival for like a religious tent revival. That's what it looked like to me. She was screaming, like she had the vapors. It's unreal. And she makes $500,000 a year doing her job, and probably a lot of expenses paid for. They have a lot of luxurious vacations, and they call them like their seminars. And they have a charter. They're since I believe 1906, a federal charter. So what can we do about the NEA?
And that's a great point. I think folks have to understand these union bosses, this is not Miss Johnson, third grade teacher. These union bosses are some of the most active, aggressive, left-wing political activists in the country. So when you look at folks like Becky Pringle, when you look at folks like Randy Weingarten, again, these are not your classroom teachers. These are union mob bosses that are there to push an agenda, that are there to organize an army by force, by the way, and then utilize them for their ends. And so, number one, we should eliminate that federal charter. So, Congress should act on that. We should see immediately, why in the world would you have a federal charter for something that's undermining the very country that we live in? Number two, guys, in all the states across the country, we should be passing legislation to not allow the unions to take from a teacher's paycheck automatically. Why in the world would you allow them to utilize taxpayer dollars, taxpayer resources to grow their union membership? Why would you allow them to have offices that are paid for by taxpayers? Why would you allow them to house on school grounds? That's crazy. Okay. So again, get the unions out of the schools, get the unions to stop using taxpayer resources to grow their membership. These are things that have to be done because, again, they have built in an institution that will continue to grow itself, that will continue to self-perpetuate until we stop those things. So it's so important. There are mechanisms that can be done at the state level, at the federal level, that help tremendously. And then what you're doing, Scarlett, exactly what the Moms for Liberty and so many parents are doing around the country. Sound the alarm so that folks know, taxpayers know, hey, you got kids in school. If you don't have kids in school, is this what your tax dollars going to? Is this what you want your schools to look like for the future of the country? It's so important that folks understand the monopoly the unions have on power in our education system, and the people left out of that are parents. So the more power they have, the more power they are stripping from parents, and that's why you see them fight so doggedly to keep parents out of the process, to force good teachers to join their union even if they don't want to, because again, it's about a power struggle for our education system that they know will lead to future elections and what the next generation will look like.
Yes, and in these documents, they called Republicans, conservatives, villains, openly called villains. And so imagine this is professional development. You have educators from across the country. They're coming in and they are going to be schooled on how to pass out coloring pages of a gender unicorn where little kids can color in their identity, like what is their identity, what's their expression, and asking all sorts of personal questions. And I guarantee you that these will be handouts that parents will not see. And they're giving them to kids so young that perhaps if you don't ask the right question, your kid's not going to tell you. You could say, how was school? And, oh, fine. So maybe you don't even find out that they were asked these questions. And how can a little child wrap their mind around such questions when, they play make-believe? These are kids that still believe in the tooth fairy. And then you're asking them, oh, what's your gender? And it's just ridiculous. On top of that, to call conservatives or people that support Trump villains means that they are entering into a classroom. And if you have a child in that classroom, they're viewing you as a villain. You're a villain. You're a bad person. So that really bothers me as a parent, that the person that would be educating my child and spending time with them during the day would think that I'm a villain. That's morally reprehensible.
And that's such an important part of this as well, is it's pushing the indoctrination. It's also turning kids against their parents, because they know if you look at what Karl Marx talks about, you look at kind of those tenets of Marxism, you've got to break down the societal units in order to get your agenda across. So there's attacks on religion. You see the attacks on Christianity. You see the attacks on Judaism, right? It's to break down those societal bonds. The second part, and the most basic unit of society, is the family unit. So they want to break down those family units so that when they come in with indoctrination and the kid goes home and tells mom and dad, well, I think I'm a new gender today, the mom and dad go, hold on a second. That's not the way it works, right? No, that's not. Well, remember, they've already conditioned the kid to believe if you believe that If you're a conservative, if you have just a traditional mindset of what 99.99% of people believe just like 15 years ago, you're evil. You're a fascist. You're a terrible person. So when that conversation happens, that distance between the child and the parent grows even wider, because the kid now looks at their mom and dad and go, oh, I didn't know mom and dad were evil. I didn't know they were bad. So now they're not going to listen to mom and dad in the future. So it continues this divide between parents and their kids. And again, that's very intentional, because that leads to a very opening for them to continue to indoctrinate their kids without that parental support, without the kids wanting to go back to their parents. And again, any good teacher would tell you that you want to do the opposite, right? As a teacher, I was always encouraging mom, dad, I want you to see everything we're doing. I want you to be as involved as, but you want to email me every day? That's great. Let's talk every day, because the more involved you are, the better off your kid's going to be. So I want questions. I want you to see what I'm doing. And again, that's where the transparency part is so key. In Oklahoma, we had the unions fight against us, and we just said, hey, we want to make every option available for parents. Why is that a bad thing? But again, it tells you the motive. They want it hidden. They want to keep it from parents so that they can continue to push this agenda.
Yeah, that's a good point, that they are not only dividing parents and children, but they're causing a divide between parents and teachers. And that's a really essential relationship. When they are telling teachers, no, they're bad, they're villains, that means they're taking maybe some very young teachers new to the profession and filling their heads full of these ideas that are going to make it difficult for them to reach out to parents. They're going to view them with skepticism and fear, even like they're bad people, they're fascists, like we can't, I don't know what to do. And so they are intentionally putting a wedge between a relationship that needs to flourish. Parents need to talk to teachers, and teachers need to talk to parents. And kids do better when they act as partners together. For that year, that there's a partnership, that there's a good working relationship. That means the kids, and the kids can't come home and say, oh, the teacher did this, and then tell the teacher, oh, mom and dad said this. Young kids will often, to get out of something, they'll try to, if you're not communicating, the kids will try and manipulate that situation. If you're communicating, they can't. And that used to be the dilemma that I was faced with my kids. Like if my son would say, oh, my teacher didn't give me that homework, I'd say, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to give them a call. Then suddenly, oh, wait. Now I'm thinking about it, they did give you them, because they knew I was going to reach out and say something. So that it's really important that there's this community, that there's this real community, not their fake community, not their glitter community, but in a real community, you work together, you talk things out. But instead, they're putting all of these wedges, and these wedges give them more power.
That's exactly right. And again, think about when they're talking to teachers and they're telling them to view these parents as fascists, as evil, what they're wanting that teacher to view the parent as. It's somebody, if you really believe that somebody's a fascist, would you trick them? Would you manipulate them? Would you hide things from them? That's exactly what they're wanting the teachers to do. So they're saying, listen, these are really bad people. Okay. So here's what you need to do. Don't let them see what you're doing in the classroom. Sneak it around them. Don't get a relationship with them. It doesn't matter what they think. As a matter of fact, they're an enemy to the work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So when they build that in with teachers, with their union membership, it is one of the most detrimental things you can do for a kid, is driving them against their parents and then having the parents out of the process. I mean, again, we want parents involved in the process. If you're a good teacher, hey, I want the more parents are involved, the better off the kid's going to be. First of all, just health-wise, just as a better life, but academically, you want that parent to know exactly everything that's going on. But again, they break down those fundamental, think about this. Education is always really three parts. You got teacher, you got student, you have parent. Okay, it's kind of like this little triangle, right? All three need to be involved. All three need to be engaged. All three need good communication. You do that, you have good curriculum. Kid is really set up for success. Well, what they're trying to do is break that apart and say, no, we're carving out that side of the triangle with the parent. We want it just to be teacher, student. And what we want is our teachers to push this agenda. So that third leg there of the triangle, we want that knocked out. We want you to view them in this negative light so that we don't have to deal with parents anymore. We don't have to be checked on our ideology. It will continue to flow between teacher and student. without even, and frankly, without even the parents knowing, because we're going to hide it. We're going to fight transparency. We're not going to let them see what's going on in the classroom.
You know, and your organization, Teacher Freedom Alliance, is doing something that I think is really critical, because I think that too often over the last 5 years, teachers will look at activists like myself or Moms for Liberty and think, oh, they hate me. They think I'm a bad person. And that's not true. And that's why I love this report by Defending Ed about the NEA, because we need to go after the real villains of this situation, which are the teachers' unions, which are these for-profit groups. I mean, they say they're nonprofit, but they're making a lot of money creating this divisive curriculum and then peddling it. Poverty pimps, like Shelby Steele called them, they're poverty pimps. They make a ton of money on the backs of the poor, the working poor, those who need education the most. They're using them. And then the only people, and you know this, the only people that you can hire for this DEI are their groups. You hire them, you spend a fortune, you bring them in. And this is the kind of stuff right here that they're going to be providing in professional development. How did I get this? From a teacher. A teacher shared this with me. So there are good teachers out there that don't want this. All of the information that I get from teachers, whistleblowers who want to expose this. And the last anecdote, I was recently at a conference. I was sitting at a round table with all educators, and they see I'm like, oh, I'm with Moms for Liberty. And I could feel like the kind of tension. By the end, Ryan, they all had my card. They're like, you're nothing like I thought. I'm like, I want teachers to make more money. I want this to be one of the highest paying professions possible, but they're doing their job. And I want them to have the flexibility and freedom to do what works in the classroom, because every year your student population changes. You know, I want you to be supported. I want you to have the resources you need. I want less administrators and more specialists. And they're like, yes, everything you're saying, yes. I want there to be tools in your toolbox to discipline. And I think with parental rights come parent responsibility. The parents have responsibilities, and they can't drop their kids off and expect the schools to parent children. And they're just like, yes, everything you're saying, yes. So by the end, I was surrounded by probably Democrats. We didn't talk politics. We just talked education. And they saw, wait, I agree with her more than I do with my union boss.
So this is the really fascinating thing about everything is that good teachers believe in the Moms for Liberty message. Good teachers believe in all the reforms you just laid out. What the teachers unions have done is, and now remember, if you're a teacher, you're working, you're a good teacher, you're working hard. You get an email from the teachers union today telling you how evil Trump is, how much he hates you, how much Moms for Liberty hates you, how much conservatives hate you. You know, and over time you go, I mean, yeah, these emails sound really bad. You know, they really sound like they don't like me, even though I'm trying to do a good job. But what they've done is not only do they indoctrinate kids, they indoctrinate and lie to good teachers. And they say, listen, you know, we're out advocating for you, yada, yada, yada. They're not. What they have done is, remember, the unions have a grand bargain with school boards, school board associations, and administrators associations. And their deal is, we just get as much money into the pot as possible, and then we get our cut. So they don't care that, again, administrative growth has grown through the roof in our public school system. You know, we fought that here in Oklahoma and said, hey, no. I want less administrators. I want more money going directly to resources for kids and teacher pay. Why are we doubling, tripling administrative costs when we are getting rid of the Federal Department of Education? We're slashing these bureaucratic requirements, and yet you guys are hiring more administrators, not supporting the teachers in the classroom. So when you get to teachers and tell them all this, they go, oh, hold on a second. I agree with all of that. And that's what's so important about the work we're doing at the Teacher Freedom Alliance is we've got thousands of teachers from all over the country that are going, sign me up. That's exactly what we want for the kids. It's exactly what we want for the classroom. So their eyes are open to, guys, the unions are not fighting for the things that you want, they're actually just fighting for their own power, their own control. The reality is, conservatives, the message that we have for education, it not only benefits kids, it not only benefits parents, it actually benefits good teachers as well. That is the big lie that they have pushed, which is that, Moms for Liberty, conservatives are anti-teacher. No, we're not. Well, we support good teachers. We know that good teachers in the classroom make all the difference in the world for our kids. What we are fighting against is a left-wing power structure that is lying to good teachers, that is manipulating the education system, and that is indoctrinating our kids.
And you know how many public school teachers feel about public education when you discover that so many of them send their own children to private school or to a lot. One of our, we have school board members that don't claim they don't like Moms for Liberty. Their kids all go to Catholic schools. They're sitting board members in my district, and their kids go to private school because they know, they get it.
Yeah,
they know what's going on.
Let me give you another big lie they love to push on teachers. We fight for school choice because we go, look, if a parent wants to send their kid to a public school or private school or homeschool, that's great. Hey, parents, you know best. Let's let you decide. They tell teachers this is going to ruin you, your salary, everything else. And I'm going, guys, let's just take a step back. So if parents get to choose wherever their kids go to school, do you know what the number one thing a parent looks for in a school? They look for, how good's the teacher, right? Like, I want to trust the teacher. I want a good teacher. I want to make sure that when my kids go to school, they have a good teacher. So guess what that means? Good teachers, you're valued more in a system where parents decide, because parents don't want bureaucracy. Parents don't want more administrators. Parents don't want a left-wing bias to everything their kids get. They want a good teacher. So the more that you give parents power and control and protect parents' rights, the more teachers are actually valued in an education system. The reason that you see good teachers undervalued in an education system now is because of the left-wing bureaucracy that is just built in to grow their own power. It's not to improve education. If it was, they would value the teachers more. If it was, you would see things like merit pay for good teachers. You would see things like bonuses when you hit certain academic indicators. You would see more, but that's not what they value. They value power and control. So they actually are working against your good teachers in your districts.
So there's a lot of reform that needs to happen. When you're talking about administrators in my own school district, we had gone from, when I was running for school board, I think I had found that we had doubled the size of administrators. And in fact, the year that I was running, we gained 3 administrators, lost 6 full-time teaching positions. So 6 teachers had either retired or they moved, and they were not filling those positions, but they added 3 more administrators. So so in a way, they're taking advantage of a situation where there's a retired teacher, and so they're at the top of their pay. They get rid of them, and they hire another administrator, and now they're just bringing on part-time. So there's all sorts of schemes that they're doing where they don't have to provide full benefits and stuff. So it's understandable that there are teachers that are like, that my pay is not going up to the inflationary rate, but there are administrators that are making 6 figures. And it's really, if we can just talk to them and tell them, take a look, like, why are we so top heavy? Why don't you have the reading and math specialists? When an equity team will come through a district, oftentimes the first thing that they will get rid of, math specialists, reading specialists, gifted and talented programs, and special ed programs. And instead, they will use the equity framework, and you'll bring in DEI consultants that will tell a teacher, now you have to wear all those hats. Now you are a special ed teacher. You are a gifted and talented teacher. You are a general ed teacher. And that is why there's so many teachers leaving the profession. It's not because of Moms for Liberty. It's because under this current scheme, teachers have to take on more responsibility. Their pay is not rising to that responsibility. They remove all the tools in their toolbox to effectively govern their classroom. So they can't discipline at all. There's nothing they can do. Their classroom, they have one child that's causing problems, and there's absolutely nothing that they can do. Or, because the state bureaucracy, and how that, you could talk about that. And then, so they're like, why am I even doing this anymore? So we're losing good teachers. the unions try and blame us, but really they need to look in the mirror. They are the reason why.
That's right. I mean, in our schools now, we hire more non-teachers than teachers. Think about how absurd that is. What is the point of a school? The point of a school is to help educate kids, right? It's to bring in teachers that partner with parents that help them with math, reading, history, science, right? That is what the school is there to design to do, is to bring in these specialists, these teachers, to help educate kids. So why do we have more non-teachers in our schools than teachers? Now what an administrator and what a lot of these folks claim is, well, it's bus drivers, cafeteria workers. No, it's not. Okay. No, it's not. The reason you're seeing more non-teachers than teachers hired by our schools is because you've got DEI offices, because you've got assistant to the local superintendent. Think about this. You have a superintendent, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, vice principal, blah, blah, blah. You go through all these administrative positions. They've created deans of students. You start looking at this going, hold on a second. Just a few years ago, none of these positions existed. So what you continue to see is the growth of the DEI bureaucracy that has ballooned in school budgets. So instead of hiring good teachers, instead of paying teachers better, instead of to your point, you look at programs like Gifted and Talented, special education. Instead of getting more folks involved in those type of programs, it's more administrative staff, more bureaucracy, more DEI offices. That is what they've done with taxpayer dollars, not improve the classrooms. And frankly, the problem isn't about money. We have plenty of money in education. The problem is the way the money is spent in education. It is not spent in a student first mentality. It is not spent on what's best for the kids. It's spent on what is best for the administrators and the unions. And that's a fundamental problem in our schools.
This gives me the opportunity to talk about something that I posted on my personal account. I'm trying to find it, but I exposed something that happened in Madison, Wisconsin. So they just passed last year a $500 million referendum for buildings, and then $100 million for operational costs. And so they wanted a new logo. So they hired a firm in Kentucky. They didn't even hire a local Wisconsin firm. They hired a firm in Kentucky to create a logo. The very next day, someone gifted them a logo. And they're like, oh, great, we'll use this logo. They still wrote the check for $100,000 to the company they hired to create a logo because they signed a contract they could not get out of. This was fun money to them. It's monopoly money, $100,000. They didn't even blink an eye. They spent that money without even going to, they didn't have a discussion about it. They didn't talk to the community about it. They have so much money, they don't even care how $100,000 was flushed down the toilet. How many that could have hired two specialists,
Yeah.
two part-time specialists to come in, or one full-time teacher. That $100,000.
Yeah.
And no one even blinks an eye. No one cares. And this is why they don't have business degrees, these administrators. They don't know what they're doing. They always claim they need more money. And I guarantee you, WEAC, which is the Madison extension of NEA, all they do is cry, we need more money. They got $600 million and they still want more money. It's never enough.
And they view taxpayer money as monopoly money, as funny money. I mean, they don't view it as these are taxpayer dollars that are resources here for us to make sure kids are being educated. They view it as, oh, great, we got more money to go spend. And you make a great point there too of, why in the world we have all these administrators that don't have any kind of business background. They don't have any kind of, again, you have most states that block you from being a school administrator unless you have a school administrator degree. And I go, okay, so if somebody's a successful business person, they can't come in and help run a school. That doesn't make any sense, right? But they fundamentally set up a system that perpetuates their views, their left-wing views, protects bureaucracy, protects government. And that's what you end up seeing are things that, like you said right there. I've got so many anecdotes of schools spending money like that.
You do.
They don't have any kind of view that this is for the kids, that this is taxpayer dollars. It is a view that we've got the money, so we're going to spend it how we want. So, Scarlett, I really appreciate you having me on and talking through all of those things because, again, I think it's so fundamental that there's an understanding that that's how broken the system is.
So would a solution be then that we have to, because oftentimes you can only hire somebody that has a degree in education, a PhD. So a
Yeah.
solution would be to start to break apart this monopoly, is to start hiring people that do not have a degree in teaching, that have subject matter experience and expertise, and they could get a teaching certificate in a year while teaching. They could go in, if you were a biologist, now you're, let's say, you're 60 and retiring early, want to give back, hey, come on and teach biology.
Mhm.
And you're more than qualified to do it, and you can get a teaching certificate. There's certain skills, that certain things to learn. Why don't we do that more? And as far as administrators, I think let's hire people with degrees in business, because when my husband, who's in business, he blows his mind. He can't even handle it when he looks at the way money is spent in a school district. He's like, this would never fly in the real world.
Oh, absolutely. You got to break down the silos and say, listen, we want good, successful people in our schools. We want to help more people get in. We're not trying to create all these hoops for you to jump through, because remember, so many of these hoops are there because they want you to go to the college and university classes that teach you to be social justice warriors, to push you through this Marxism and indoctrination there, instead of saying, hey, listen, hey, if you know what you're talking about, again, to your point, the number one indicator of if a teacher is going to be successful, especially beyond fifth grade, from an education standpoint, is subject matter expertise. Do they know what they're teaching? Of course, that's common sense, but it seems to be so lost these days. If you know what you're teaching, you're much more likely to be good at teaching it, right? So if you have people with subject matter expertise, let's get them in the classroom. Let's get them degreed. Let's get them the certifications they need. But let's move forward. But again, there's such a racket around teacher certification and the requirements there, because again, it's not meant to improve the educator. It's meant to force you into the system, so that you can be indoctrinated, is really what they're pushing.
And what if you're a mom like me, you've raised your kids, maybe encourage them, a program that says, we'll pay for you to get go maybe a year, 2-year program, and go and become a teacher. Go teach in kindergarten. That can be your act too. You know, you've already raised kids. You can have, like, why don't you come and work for us? You know, you probably have a bachelor's degree in something. I think to really encourage that, to go after those that have already raised kids and have a lot of life experience, and bring that into the classroom.
No, that's exactly right. Well, that is invaluable experience. You can't get a better experience than raising your own kids, and then understanding, what kids need, to understand how kids develop. And so, yeah, no, look, I mean, that's part of what you see from an establishment in academia that try to do this view of only we know, we have this kind of knowledge, nobody else no. Parents get it better than anybody. So again, the better we are at getting more parents involved, whether it's directly, like you said, a pathway to being a teacher, or just involved in the classroom in any capacity, the better off the kids are going to be for it. There's nobody that loves their kids, understands kids better than parents. We should be doing more of that, not less of it.
And I know you'll have to go soon. So 2 last questions. Does your organization provide professional development for teachers in lieu of this kind of NEA-funded professional development, where you'll get to sit through 2 days of basically a struggle session, where you're going to have to fill out, literally they give the teachers these coloring materials. You have to color pages about gender. I mean, it's really just kind of insulting what they're doing to educators. And to what are some of that? I see the Trump administration. What are some solutions to all of these problems that we are talking about, and how is the Trump administration offering some of those solutions?
Yeah, the first part, absolutely. We offer professional development. It's actually focused on academics. It's actually focused on what parents want for their kids, actually focused on good teachers.
Revolutionary.
Right. And we're actually transparent about it. You can go online. Hey, we post them. We're posting on our social media pages all the time. Hey, look at this clip from our PD. Look at this clip. Here's the information. Because again, we want to be transparent, but we also want to make sure that teachers are getting the trainings that they need, that are necessary for them to be the best teacher they can be. So again, we actually focus on academics. We actually focus on student growth. We actually focus on the things that our kids need and good teachers need. And look, President Trump has done a tremendous job. Eliminating that federal Department of Education is huge. Don't forget that is the teachers union's number one ask back in the 70s was we want a federal Department of Education so we have a government bureaucracy to push our agenda. So him taking that away, that fulfilling that promise that Republicans have made now for decades is huge. And the other part is their continued push to get our schools back on track on a focus on academics, away from this left-wing nonsense. I know that the Trump administration is always looking for ways to get our schools back on track so they continue to fight for things like school choice, parents' rights, and eliminating that federal Department of Education is a huge part of that.
And by when even eliminating so that people know that they're moving these departments, they're not just slashing and your kid's not going to be able to get a college loan. They're moving things into other departments where they belong.
That's right.
So they're taking the budgets, they're taking the programs, and they're just moving them into other agencies where there's a better fit, where they won't be the influence of these unions. Because I just had a talk with someone, oh, they are eliminated. I'm like, they are removing some things, some programs, like they just got rid of a health clinic that was in the Department of Education that saw they're saving $500,000 a year, and it was open for maybe 2 hours a day, a few days a week. And as of the last fiscal year, had seen 60 patients, could provide no prescriptions. It was like, why is it even there? What is this clinic? And they're eliminating some waste. They're eliminating waste and grift and fraud, but they're moving essential programs into their rightful category.
And outside of an agency that was Marxist and left-wing to its core. So again, even when you had programs that people may support, they were funneling them through an agency that shouldn't have existed and that were a bunch of left-wing activists. So taking that apart and going, no. If this program wants to continue, if we think it's a valuable program, that's fine. But we're not going to funnel it through a Marxist Department of Education. We're going to sit here and say, look, college loan, this is the process. You're not going to funnel it where you have an agency that's constantly putting all of these left-wing, DEI processes onto what's going on. To your point, growing way outside of academics. No, whatever programs we have are going to be very specific, very targeted, and very focused, and very transparent with the public, not run through an agency that is a track record for undermining parents and promoting Marxism.
Yes. The best chance for success, red state, blue state, is going to be local control.
No.
As long as it's in the federal government, there's no hope. You're at the whim of whoever's elected. And look, even President Trump, even with the mandate that he was given, and that having control of the House and Senate, it is so difficult to move a bureaucracy. It's all Title IX. All of the executive orders and guidance is ultimately laying at the feet of the Supreme Court because they just refuse. I mean, this entire presentation from the NEA is illegal in at least half the states in this country by state statute, and I believe illegal, period, because it's violating federal law. But they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and they have to be stopped. And so before you go, I'm going to share the screen of your organization. This is a great organization, 100% needed, because we need to start building the bridges with our educators, coming up with better solutions, free market solutions, innovative solutions for teachers and for parents so that they have more choice.
That's right. And we're unapologetically, we're pro-parent, we're pro-America, we're pro-conservative traditional values. Look, that's what we're going to promote. That's what's best for our kids, is what's best for education. So yeah, anybody out there, join up. You don't have to be a teacher to join up. We want parents, taxpayers, help support the mission to get our schools back on track by making sure we've got good teachers in our schools. Teacherfreedom.com. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to fight back against the radical union membership, but we're going to continue to partner with parents. We know parents know best for their kids. We're unapologetic about that. We know that that is key to a great education system. And so we're very excited to do the work and to work with good teachers, parents, and taxpayers across the country. So thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the shout out for the organization.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'll have you on more. That's great. It's great because you have so much experience, and this is such a good organization. And it's off, because otherwise we could sit and talk and, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. And then at the end, you're like, okay, call to action. Well, go to your school board meeting. you should do that, run for school board, all of those things, because local. But here are some solutions. If you have a teacher who you even think might be an ally, just give them this information. Tell them there are some options for you. Check this out. Listen, you don't have to say a word to me. You don't have, just go check it out, because you might see something that you like. And I just hope we can get the word out that Democrat, Republican, Independent, this doesn't matter. This is too important. We have to save education in America, because we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis when graduating seniors cannot do second grade math in America. This is crisis time.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much for coming on. And I will I'll share some more information in the comments.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. That was a great conversation with Ryan Walters of Teacher Freedom Alliance. It's clear that the crisis in education is not accidental. It's been engineered. And those orchestrating it, well, one of them is the NEA. The NEA is not failing. It's actually doing what it intended to do. And that's the scary part. And that's why Moms for Liberty is here and why we're rising. Because when the most powerful union in America turns its back on children, moms have to come forward. This isn't left versus right. It's normal versus crazy. We are the firewall standing between our children and an education system that has frankly lost its mind. And when you look at the documents, that's quite evident. The NEA, it's not a union. It's a political machine. It's a political machine. They're more focused on political indoctrination and defeating Trump than they are on teaching kids. That's a fact. When you consider the NAEP numbers and how disappointing they are, and any parent can tell you that the education system is just not what it once was. So instead of let's figure this out. Let's figure out how can we raise reading scores? How can we raise math scores? No. How can we teach kids about the gender unicorn? How can we teach liberated ethnic studies instead of the US Constitution? They're not teaching kids to read. They're instructing districts to deceive parents. They're funneling millions into political campaigns and into ideology. That's just, and it's just wrong. It's immoral. It's wrong. They have a federal charter. The NEA is a federal charter, and you have to go to the NEA website to look at affiliates. So in Wisconsin, WIAC is an affiliate, for example. And understanding that even if you live in a state where there isn't they can't compel union membership in Wisconsin because of Act 10, which, by the way, because of what's happened with our state Supreme Court, Act 10 is in a very precarious position, and Act 10 was a monumental legislative act from Governor Scott Walker's, and this was 2010. He was recalled, but successfully won against a recall. And it was all about destroying the power of teachers' unions in our state. But even still, we have affiliates of the NEA, and unions get involved in elections. There will be inevitably some union members in your school district. They will hand out pamphlets. They will put pamphlets into the mailboxes of other teachers about who to vote for. They funnel money into campaigns. They have preferred candidates. They recruit and train candidates, all of the above. So that's why we need Moms for Liberty. That's why we need the Teacher Freedom Alliance. That's why we need Defending Ed. That's why we need so many of the parental rights groups out there. I just had a great live stream with members of some of the strongest local parental rights groups around the country in Colorado, Illinois, California, everywhere. So we have to join together and fight this. And I am so grateful for the Teacher Freedom Alliance because we have to build bridges with educators. Although we have a growing homeschool community, which is great, we still have to have these bridges. A lot of times, parents who homeschool still utilize their public school district for different classes. They will send their kids there for music, for sports. There might be an honors class that they will take at the school. So, and this is our community, and we have to care about our communities. The vast majority of American children will be educated in a public school system, and that's going to remain a fact for quite some time. Even that the school choice movement is moving forward is excellent, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to take a long time to change this huge behemoth education bureaucracy. And some simple reforms are some of the ones that we talked about. Finding new pools of applicants for teachers, administrators, state superintendents. We need that. We need people in education. Education needs to be decentralized, and let's deconstruct it using their language. Let's deconstruct education and let's reimagine it so that we have happy, confident teachers, happy, confident, and competent teachers that are well paid, and form partnerships with parents who feel heard, who are prioritized as number one, because parents are the number one force in a child's life, in a minor's life. And that provides kids, students, everything that they need so that they can not just survive K through 12 education, but they can thrive. And then let's make sure that when they go to college, that it's not another higher level Marxist indoctrination camp. So, and where kids aren't wasting their money, that they're getting degrees that they can use, that these degrees don't cost a fortune, that they don't end up having a lifelong debt to go into such debt for an undergraduate degree that they will be paying on this debt for 30 years. For 30 years. 30 years to pay for the education. Let's hope that they didn't end up with a degree in ethnic studies, a minor in white privilege, and then a focus on, radical feminism, because they will be paying on that degree forever. And the only job that they can get is DEI. When you get a degree as foolish as that, what else can you do? You have to be a DEI agent. You have to be a trainer. So they've, it's, when you peel back the layers, as I have, you'll see that these systems, they're hard to dismantle because they're so deeply entrenched. You have a bunch of uneducated, almost barely literate graduates that go into college, and then if they do not have the skills to get a degree in business, medicine, technology, science, then they're going to end up finding something in maybe the liberal arts, and then they end up a gender studies major, and so they don't have the math skills. They're not required to use them, and then they grow into adulthood, and they have these degrees that are useless, that are functionally useless, except they become a professor, they become an activist, they become a DEI trainer, administrator. So think about the systems that we're building and why it's so hard to take them apart. And then to get back to what's happening with the Department of Education, let's go straight to Secretary Linda McMahon. I'm going to pull this up because I think that you're just not being told not being told the truth about what's really happening. Now I got to find the link again. All right.
Your students and your kids are doing in class. Let teachers teach. Let states be innovative. Take this bureaucracy out of Washington. Who's better to do that? Me, sitting in an office as a bureaucrat in Washington, or those people on the ground working with those students and those teachers every single day? And I urge all of our parents, be involved. Go to school board meetings. Elect school boards. Run for school boards. Pay attention to what your students and your kids are doing in class. Let teachers teach. Let states be innovative. Take this bureaucracy out of Washington. Who's better to do that? Me, sitting in an office as a bureaucrat in Washington, or those people on the ground working with those students and those teachers every single day? And I urge all of our parents, be involved. Go to school board meetings. Elect school boards. Run for school boards. Pay attention to what your students and your kids are doing in class.
So I think Secretary Linda McMahon needs to be an official member of Moms for Liberty. I'm saying that now, like, because she is speaking my love language. Everything she said, fire, absolute fire, truth right there. Like, could not have said it better. Thank you. I am so pleased with what she's doing right now and the language that she's using as she's doing it. Just 100% true, 100% true. Hadn't reposted that yet. So she is calling for a hard reset at the Department of Education. Let teachers teach, let states be innovative, take the bureaucracy out of Washington. Here, 100% yes. So, and then the U.S. Department of Labor just put out, the Department of Education has failed our students. While the bureaucracy at the department grew unchecked, our nation's reading and math scores underwent a decade-long decline. This is why POTUS is taking action to streamline the federal education programs, ensuring our students are prepared with the skills that they need to thrive in the workforce of tomorrow. Kind of what I just said. So high schoolers in the United States last year earned their lowest marks on reading and math in 2 decades, according to the nation's report card released on September 9th. And we've discussed that a lot, and we just got to keep talking about it. The test, known as the National Assessment of Education Progress, we call it NAEP, is the largest nationally representative assessment of K through 12 student achievement, and the results show that high school students across public and private schools alike are backsliding in math, science, and reading, continuing a decade-long decline in student performance nationally. It didn't start with COVID lockdowns, shutdowns, and treating our kids like a disease, but it was certainly exacerbated by it. So don't believe the fake news. The U.S. Department of Education is doing a great job. As a matter of fact, they pointed out that even though there was a shutdown for over a month, no one noticed at the Department of Education because it's not essential. Other departments can do the work of the Department of Education. Like Ryan said, the Department of Education was an ask by teachers' unions. It is a Democrat machine. It is a way to launder money, as Corey DeAngelis says often. What is being happened is just reconfiguration of the Department of Education in a lot of ways. Waste, fraud, things we don't need going away. key essential services are being moved exactly where they need to go, if not to a different brand, just a different department or agency at the federal level, it's going back to the states for the most part. For the most part, the power is going back to the states. And then we have to contend on the state level even more. And they don't get to pass the buck and say, oh, the federal government made me do it, or the federal government won't do this or won't do that. We're going to have to get a lot more involved. And I'm talking to you, Wisconsin, get out to vote in our unfortunate elections that occur in April instead of November. We have our nonpartisan elections take place in April. It's terrible. It only helps Democrats, but it is what it is. And what the White House said, make America great again. As we return education to the states, we're zeroing in on every ounce of ways to make sure more resources land where they belong, with students. So this is wonderful. The great thing that Secretary Linda McMahon is also focused on is having kids explore options beyond four-year universities. There are opportunities that are technical and technical education. So they're integrating work-based learning opportunities and career and technical education into K through 12 systems of higher education, setting students up for success in manufacturing and other technical careers, other skilled traits. There's different pathways even to a four-year, encouraging kids to see the financial picture. I think it would be really great for every kid that graduates to have to understand what happens when they take out student loans and understand what compounding interest means, because they don't understand it. And then introduce them to other pathways. They could start off at a community college for 2 years and transfer to a four-year anniversary. And then they would have less debt. And that would mean they could spend the 2 years in community college figuring out exactly what they want to do and don't want to do. And while they're doing that, they aren't paying an exorbitant, like 80, 90, 100,000 a year at some cottage college. I have personal stories on this as a mom, 5 kids, one of whom just graduated medical school, another who's about to graduate nursing school. Then I have teenagers and an 8th grader. I have taken my children to counselors. I even once paid for a college counselor because I was told I had to do this. This was many years ago. And this college counselor was trying to tell my son to go to every school except for the ones that were more economical and reasonable, discouraging him from attending any state school and instead to go to private universities I had never heard of that cost a fortune. And so they'll encourage kids to do this, tell parents, oh my gosh, you have to do this, take out all the loans you can, go into debt. And the kids see these like amazing campuses that look like they're right out of a movie. And they go to these universities, these private universities. They spend a fortune. Why did they need to go there? If there's not a compelling reason to leave your state and go to a different school, then you shouldn't. It's really expensive. But state schools need to have better admission policies for residents. They cannot keep preferring to take out of country, out of state students because they get more money. And state schools just need to do, all universities need to stop becoming Marxist indoctrination camps. That's key. It's just disgusting. If I started to talk about what's happening in colleges that's Marxist, crazy, and radical, I literally would not stop talking all day long. It would be all we talked about. My friends that have kids that are freshmen, I mean, constantly I'm sent example. It's there's so much. And frankly, all you have to do is, I could go for Madison, Wisconsin, just go on their website, start looking through their course catalog, and boom. I mean, it's so freaking woke. Like, it's so woke. It's like just exhausting. It's exhausting. But we have to keep fighting. We have to keep fighting. And we do need different pathways, different solutions. I love that the Secretary of Education and the Trump administration is focusing on that, because you know what? Some kids, they could become electricians, they could become plumbers, they could make six figures, they could be paid to go to school, they could open their own business eventually, very young, they could invest in property, they could start buying properties. These are the stories. When I meet kids that are, they're making bank, they're driving around a nice vehicle, not too crazy, they already own a home, they're under 30 and married. A lot of them are skilled trade, and they're starting to buy investment properties already. Like, but this requires kids to either have parents and family members that are influencing kids, or that they are in schools that are teaching kids certain things, providing pathways, encouraging programs in high schools where kids can talk to real world people. I'm going to go after this, but Rodney Dangerfield, back to school, classic. But when he's in, I believe it was Harvard, and the Harvard business guy is like, oh, here's how you start a business. And then Rodney Dangerfield like starts to interject. Everything you're saying is wrong. First, you have to do this. First, you have to do that. Here's a real world experience. This is how it goes. And all the kids start taking notes. That's what this is like. We've got to give kids practical, real world experiences. We've got to stop wasting precious classroom time on psychobabble and nonsense, and realize that the people that are educating them into this psychobabble and nonsense can't do second grade math. So why are we listening to them? They're functionally illiterate, most of them. They are experts in nothing of value. Nothing of value. I have taken enough professional development that I could be a DEI instructor, for crying out loud. It takes no effort to run around blaming white people for everything and the system and this or that. And I'll let money, please, money, please, money, please. That doesn't take effort. Destroying things takes no effort. If you had a toddler, you could build and build this beautiful Lego castle. It could take you weeks. And a toddler takes about 30 seconds for that thing to be demolished. Easy to destroy, hard to build. Hard to build. Think about that, because the woke cultural Marxists have already destroyed so much. It's hard to rebuild. It takes a long time. The Trump administration can't snap its fingers. This is a generational project. So we have to think, what can we do in the here and now? And then what can we do to lay the groundwork for future generations? We have to build the city we will not see. And we have to accept that, stop being selfish, and start being pragmatic, get as much as we can right now, deal with the world as it is, prepare our children for the world as it is, and then have hope for our grandchildren and our children's children. And that's how we win. That's how the left views things. And then they never stop. Take a page from that. We win. And half of our movement is like, oh, I'm done. I'm out of here. There's no hope. They lose. And they're like, oh, we lost. We just lost Mahmoud V. Taylor. The Trump administration is crushing us. Every day we wake up to 10 losses. Let's go have a conference and indoctrinate a whole bunch of teachers and hand them gender unicorn coloring pages and tell them that they need to go back home and trans as many kids as they possibly can. That's their response when they lose. So it is incumbent upon us to be better winners. And when we lose, that should be fuel in the fire. However, losing should not be the only, our movement when we are the underdog, when we don't have power, we are great at messaging, we're great at coalescing. We can't be good at losing all the time. We've got to be good at winning. We got to be better winners. Please, if I have one thing to say, we got to be better winners. We cannot constantly just feel some kind of, what do they call it, imposter syndrome or something when we win. Because we're winning and we're not messaging it great. Instead, we're focusing on a bunch of garbage. So be better winners. When losing, fight. And let's take back this country. I'm Scarlett Johnson with Moms for Liberty. I'm going to be interviewing Meg Brock today. And also, I'm going to be interviewing Evita Duffy Alfonso and Michael Alfonso. So stick around, there's going to be more. Hi, everyone. This is Unleashed with Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. And I'm here with my good friend, Meg Brock. And she comes on all the time. She's like a regular now. You're a regular.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
I love the Christmas trees in the background. Very
I'm
festive.
trying.
So-
I've got, if you could see, I've got a whole pile of Christmas stuff. So I'm trying to create a festive background. I moved my desk around and the wall is really white. It's really white. So I'll be hanging up pictures. I'm going to put like lights, and I have a Christmas tree over here, but you can't see it. So I have to move it so it's within view. So it's a work in progress. I was up till 2 a.m. putting on Christmas ornaments because now my youngest is in 8th grade. And so we had everyone come over for dinner, my son and his wife. And my oldest daughter gets into town with the baby and her husband, who's just back from deployment. Yay.
Okay.
On Wednesday morning. So I'm like getting the house baby proofed.
Oh,
Because
wow.
like I have to look at I mean, there's only so much. I've got like 25 Christmas trees, literally a lot of Christmas trees. So there's only so much you can do, but I'm like getting his room ready, getting all the stuff organized. And then of course, now they're older. They're like, after a few ornaments, so like, I'm done. It's kind of like left to me, which is kind of okay because I'm kind of a perfectionist. It's like these are the prized ornaments. Here's the baby. But like now when you do your Christmas tree and you see the ornaments, like I cry now because I'm like they were so little, and the memories with all the handmade ornaments with the popsicle sticks. I still have them, and they're on some different trees, but it's nostalgic.
It's fun. I know. It's what the holidays are fun for.
When do you do your tree? I do mine very early.
We're going up to Pennsylvania, so the kids will decorate it with my dad when we go up there for Christmas.
Okay.
So we're kind of do most of our Christmas stuff up there.
So in my family, I'm called Elf,
Okay.
like it's Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, Santa's coming.
Yeah, we have, I mean, my husband is from South Africa, and I think growing up in a warm culture, it's like a warm culture, cold culture thing. It wasn't I mean, obviously they celebrate Christmas and all of that, but it definitely wasn't to as big of a deal, I would say, as it was in like Chile, Pennsylvania. So we have a little
It's
differing opinions, yeah, or differing family traditions, but you kind of
It-
like make it one.
I've like wondered if you like live in Australia and it feels like Christmas when it's hot. It's like
Yeah, I
it's so
think it's
weird.
different. I think it's very different I mean, we spent one Christmas in South Africa, and it was definitely different being warm versus when you're like cold and cozy, and everyone like wants to wear their fleece pajamas. It's definitely a different vibe. They're all good, just different. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get to the topics, but we could, if we were to get on the subject, was it 3 years ago, we decided, we thought the kids were like, let's go somewhere warm for Christmas. Let's try that out, see what that would be like. And so we went to Cancun. We took the whole family, and they were so excited. We're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be warm for Christmas for once. And so we booked way ahead. We had this great deal. And it rained every single day and night. There was one good day at the very end, and the hotel was bad. We ended up getting like a refund, but the kids said, never again, never again. We will never, ever do this again. Santa came in on a motorcycle with his elves that did not look like they were from the North Pole. They were just like, I don't know, Vegas dancers. And
Yeah. Maybe a little South Pole elves, different
I was like,
color.
they're cool elves. They're a little different. They're female.
A little different.
And
To each their own, but yeah, I like
their own.
my kids are very excited to be cozy, and they're hoping for snow and all of that over Christmas, because there is definitely something special to it. I think there's something special to being a little chilly and drinking some hot chocolate and staying cozy.
It's nice. I'd be home for Christmas. I mean, in Wisconsin, if you're gonna go somewhere, just go in February, because by then you're just like, ugh, done. All right. Well, we'll talk. I'll be talking about Christmas a lot more. 'Cause I'm crazy for Christmas, but let's talk about the big issue that I wanted you to come on to talk about, which is woke education and the NEA. And there was a bombshell report put out by Defending Education, which always does such great work. They do great work. And they had discovered that the NEA, which has 3 million members, it is the most powerful and largest teachers union in America. And in 1906, it is unique because it has a federal charter. They have a congressional charter granted to them in 1906. And so now, more than ever, there's a call to repeal this charter. There's just no reason why this union should have a charter. It is not a teachers union focused on educating the children of America. It's something else. It's more like a political machine. in the documents released that NEA calls people who voted for Trump Republican villains. That infers then parents like us are villains, not just they don't like our ideas. We're villains. We're the bad guys in a movie. The ones the good guys need to destroy. The language again is bad, hearkening to the SPLC, and there's a lot going on there too. So if you can get worse than that, they have seminars in which they are basically telling the teachers the goal is to indoctrinate kids through gender ideology. So I sent some of this to you and you've read it. You're an investigative journalist. You have been researching this for a long time. What are your thoughts on what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that's been happening for a while now, right? I always kind of think when you hear these things and people are surprised. I mean, it's good if they're learning this for the first time, but I don't personally ever find it surprising. I find it to be what I would expect to see, you know. I mean, gender ideology is as much as, I mean, the Trump administration has signed executive orders wanting to remove gender ideology from education, at least from things that are federally funded. But you know, there's lawsuits, there's pushback against that, and I think that it's unrealistic to think that an executive order is going to just purge education of gender ideology and these Marxist ideologies that are plaguing schools. So I mean, it's unfortunate, but I would say it's kind of what I would personally what I would expect. I don't know if you feel that way. Oops.
I muted myself because I was coughing. So I'm not
Okay.
surprised by it. I am surprised how open, considering Mahmoud v. Taylor, considering the fact that the Supreme Court has just went into conference. We have cases. There's the Little John case. We've got 2 Supreme Court cases coming up that are going to talk about what's happening about sex separated spaces. Trump's executive orders, the fact that there's been guidance issued by the DOJ, OCR. I'm surprised that how radical they have become and that they're not hiding it. It's very much out in the open.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more cynical. I don't know. I feel like that there definitely has been some retreat in terms of websites scrubbed or things that are maybe a little more difficult to find. But I think with gender ideology, I mean, it's the schools, in my opinion, of having spent the past 3 years really focused on this issue, play such a huge role in all of this, because you have children who maybe they see something on the internet, maybe they have a friend who told them something about being something like non-binary, and then they go to school during a time of adolescence, during a time where they're already starting to separate from their parents, which is in a healthy way. And you have adults who affirm these ideas that are very dangerous, this lie that a child can change their sex, and then that's affirmed in the school. And you know, you brought up some of the cases that are going to be heard at the Supreme Court already have. I mean, it's definitely documented that schools around the country are secretly socially transitioning children. So that would be using a child's name or a different pronouns, or anything to kind of continue pushing them in this direction without their parents knowing. And I just find that to be so crazy, because that is an active therapeutic intervention. There's no neutrality in that. And so you potentially have teachers who aren't therapists, who aren't counselors, who aren't doctors initiating an active intervention without without any professional oversight, and without the parents even knowing. So then if the child becomes entrenched in this, by the time, a lot of times from things that I've read, it seems that parents find out when the child might want to get to a stage where they feel like they want to seek so-called medical transition or medical interventions. And obviously to do anything medical requires parental consent, although it doesn't there are ways to bypass that in some states. But yeah, I think the whole thing is really shocking. And I hope in some ways it's good that it comes out, because the more awareness, the better. I think some people think like, oh, you know, Trump won on the transgender issue, this is over. And I know it's far from being over.
It's far from being over. I am going to share the screen right now. So here, let's bring this up. I'm just going to the Defending Ed website right here. So you can see some of the documents that, so this is going to be the title. This is an upcoming professional training, advancing LGBTQ plus justice and transgender advocacy, promoting a race, class, gender narrative, strategic racism. Oh my gosh. But here, so the handouts, Republicans and their arsenal of racist dog whistles, mobilizing their base with a potent mix of racist and transphobic tropes. So there's more language. Here's what I find like diabolical, that this teachers union, which has a congressional charter, claims that spends a lot of money influencing races, has these protections by the government. They are inserting a wedge between teachers and parents. They are going to teachers and telling them that parents, be on the watch, like you got to look out for these villains, these bad guys. And who are they looking for? The parents. These are bad guys. They're talking to teachers. So when they're giving this professional development to educators, to employees of school districts, and they say, hey, here are the villains to watch out for. Well, that means the state legislators in the community. That means the parents in the community. So when a teacher is being brainwashed to think the parents are bad, and if they voted for Trump, they're villains, that is really causing harm to the parent-teacher relationship, which needs to be one of partnership, that needs to be good for a kid to succeed in school. You cannot have the parents and teachers as adversaries. They need to be partners. And so they're creating this hostility, and then this sort of aura of secrecy between a teacher and child, encouraging teachers to create sort of a circle that excludes parents and become like friends. But even more than that, like have secrets, protect that child, basically take the place of a parent. This is very dangerous, psychologically damaging to kids, harmful to the parent-teacher relationship. And as we know, since they've started to do this sort of radical cultural Marxist indoctrination, the lens that they see the world through, scores have only just plummeted. And so it's just that's what really bothers me. It bothers me the way that they are causing such division.
Yeah, and you think, I think people like you have been saying about the test scores and about how the US public education system needs to get back to educating children rather than indoctrinating children with radical ideologies. But even legacy news outlets are starting to talk about this and starting to talk about the lack of performance for American children, how American children are struggling with the basics of reading and math. And then you see, in light of that, in light of really these epic failures, we're failing a whole generation of children by not giving them a proper education. It is wild to see that the focus within education would be that there would be any focus, let alone a somewhat large focus on continuing to push these ideologies rather than reforming education and making sure children are getting the top tier education we would expect them to be getting in American public schools.
So yeah, there's, I'll share this again. So here's something, embrace, replace. They don't even want to say gender anymore. They want to say our genders. Pluralizing genders enables greater agreement. I mean, you can't even like say gender, it has to be our genders.
I can't keep up with all the words. I think when I read that we were replacing breastfeeding with chest feeding is when I just was like, you know what, I'm tapping out. I can't even try to keep up with this anymore. It's just too much, you know?
Well, they don't have anything else to do, you know, they're not educating kids. I don't think that DEI instructors and the DEI poverty pimps, they are not the most intelligent among us. And so I think all that they can do is this. This is their bread and butter, this sort of activism. They don't have marketable skills. You have your degree in gender studies with your minor in white privilege or whiteness. What else are you going to do? You're going to just have to think of new ways to call people racist, transphobic, homophobic. Like their world necessitates all of this sort of causing all of this chaos. They're chaos agents. They're paid chaos agents. And you know, I would love nothing better than for Moms for Liberty to do nothing but focus on curriculum, and let's think of all divide, like really just kind of let's really just focus on the nuts and bolts of getting education back on track. I was talking with Ryan Walters, and there was a lot of like solution-based thinking. And Ryan Walters is the former superintendent of state superintendent of Oklahoma, and now he is president of a new organization. And I'm sorry, someone just, Evita is about to come on in a little bit. The Teacher Freedom Alliance, and we were just talking about what can we do? What are the ways to make things better and not just talk about it? And one of them is to have a new pool of educators by changing the requirements in order to become a teacher, not demanding that superintendents have a PhD in education, but supplementing, like if they have a PhD in business, which I think would be better, and then they can go back to school, continuing education in their job to get an education 2-year degree, something like that. There's all sorts of solutions. And Secretary Linda McMahon was talking about that yesterday as well, that we've got to find solutions. She was on talk shows yesterday, just saying we've got to reimagine education, as they would say, deconstruct it.
Yeah, I think there definitely needs to be reform, and you guys are always on the cutting edge of that, of figuring out what schools need, because whatever's happening right now is not, obviously, given the state of education and the scores, it's not working.
Yes, it's not working, especially when in a section titled Expressions of Oppression, the NEA discusses 4 levels of oppression: structural, institutional, internalized, and interpersonal. And then they present 10 scenarios of oppression, and the participants have to act them out. I mean, oh, this sounds like lots of fun, Meg. Sign me up.
It's crazy. I mean, again, how about reading? How about math? How about these basic things that we know kids really, really need?
Yeah, let's sit around and talk about oppression. We'll put, I'm reading through some of the scenarios and they're ridiculous, but this is a struggle session. This is a
Sorry,
struggle.
I just had a kid outside my door who was making a lot of noise. Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything.
Okay, good. Okay.
My dog's like barking at the door, and I don't hear anything.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
You know, kids are, my daughter has a half day tomorrow, and it's.
But we are moms, and yeah, my kids are home from school this week, which is fine.
Yeah,
Gosh.
this is how it goes. This is how it goes.
Yeah, this is how it goes. No, I totally, I mean, I think that there's got to be some major reform, and I mean, I think it's possible. I think maybe that's one of the hopeful things, is that you think about the past and how we have been as a country really good at providing an education. You know that we can get back to it. You know that we have so many passionate, smart people who really do care about the future of America. So I do think that there are a lot of things. I mean, just if you were to actually stop to really pause all of this ideology, this huge waste of money. I mean, you think about, I mean, I don't know if that really gets talked about enough, is the amount of money spent on these DEI, these gender ideology programs. I mean, it's a lot of money when you think you could redirect that towards other programs that would really serve children in a profound way.
And you've done the investigative work on that. You've got FOIAs and looked at school districts, and you've seen how much money is wasted. Are these federal dollars?
I think that there definitely have been. I mean, I've definitely read things or federal dollars who have been used to kind of covertly promote these things. Like, for example, there's been there are lawsuits filed against the Trump administration for limiting what can be taught in some of the sexual education programs. So there's definitely, through the comprehensive sexual education, I mean, a critical part of that is gender ideology. It's
Yes.
starting to teach children as young as 5 years old in kindergarten about, kind of really like breaking down the barriers of norms, of just biological realities. So I think for sure there's been federal dollars used for this. I think you'd probably have to, in terms of individual states or individual school districts, you'd really have to take a deep dive. But I mean, if you go on, there are websites, and there is transparency. So if you take the time to look, sometimes you can be amazed at what you're actually able to find just right out in the open.
Yeah, and I mean, during the budget process, Congress cut funding for Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood supplies, I believe the number was 80% of the training materials, the curriculum for human growth and development, sex education, and they're putting the comprehensive sexuality education and the advocates for youth and the different programs like that. And so if Congress can get a handle on this and stop the funding that is going through HHS and through various federal organizations, because this money was supposed to be to talk about STDs, prevention, HIV prevention. It's supposed to be used, for these to stop teen pregnancies, abstinence programs, a lot. So Planned Parenthood is getting money that's earmarked for abstinence programs. I mean, come on, like they're not using it. They'll write the language, they'll write the grant proposal so it looks, but they're going to then develop ads that make Catholics, religious folks, parents that are on the right, villains. Oh, you're evil parents trying to stop you from getting an abortion, and they won't give you, they won't give you this, or they won't talk to you about that. We're the good guys. We're your friends. Like, it's very much grooming.
Yeah, I mean, I did a story a couple months ago that was specifically on how the Philadelphia School District had used federal dollars from one of these sexual ed, HIV prevention type of grants to fund then the local Planned Parenthood to come in and train teachers on gender ideology. And so, I mean, the trainings were probably similar to what was expressed in those NEA trainings, just with teaching teachers to have quote unquote affirmative classrooms and kind of all the stuff you would imagine. So it's definitely something that has happened as much as it's happening now. I mean, it probably would have to go state by state and see what's happening. I think probably states like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, California, Washington State. I mean, those states are it's probably not making as much of a difference as perhaps in states that are more willing to uphold it. But when you see governors and state attorney generals filing lawsuits saying, no, we want our schools to be able to have gender ideology be taught to students, then you can imagine that it's probably really hasn't made too much of an impact in those places.
Well, the Advocates for Youth is considered the gold standard and this is in documents for the Wisconsin State Education Department. We call it the Department of Instruction. They push comprehensive sexuality education. It was funded through federal grant dollars. The IDEA program. They take money that is, and this, the money that is earmarked for special ed kids, money earmarked, for health, that's all being hijacked. It's hijacked by these activist organizations, and then they purchase the curriculum, then they give it for free to the school districts, and then they're like, oh, this is free, this is great. This is wonderful. And then you find out what's in it. Now, in Wisconsin, we're lucky. We have state statutes that have some limiting guidelines, though they are usurped constantly. But in Michigan, we talked about this on social media last week. The Michigan in 2024 stopped legislation that similar to Illinois, similar to California, that requires the use of comprehensive sexuality education, like requires it. So, and pushes it, and you have to, like, there's a complicated opt-out process. So they stopped it. And now then the Michigan State Department of Education did an end around, went around the public, the voters, and they passed through policy. They were able to pass by 6-2 just the same framework. And it's insane. It's ridiculous what they'll do. And guarantee you, NEA teachers unions, like they have a role to play in this. Here is a handout, which I know you know well. This is part of the NEA's training program. And I know you have to go soon, but I wanted to show you, look at this. Here's the coloring handout. So those present have to color this out. And then this is a sample of what they could hand to kids in classrooms.
And how the real question everyone should be asking, regardless of what your thoughts are on gender ideology, is how is that making children perform better in school? How is that raising their test scores? I mean, and that is really just the overarching question, that the biggest question, everything else aside. You think they're taking teachers are taking time away from students to be actually really learning things that are going to propel them into success in their lives, to color gender unicorns. It's just what an upside down world, right?
It is. So this is a whole class period spent talking about gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, who they're physically attracted to. Why the heck are you asking 3- and 4-year-olds who they're physically attracted to?
Any kid. I mean, I don't think that's a conversation that really any adult needs to be having with with students.
Yes, any kid, but particularly, why are you starting to? This is grooming. This is grooming kids. When we say grooming, it means you're grooming them to talk about these things at a very young age, so they feel comfortable talking about it. They overemphasize consent because I think it builds a framework to where kids can start to consent to adult relationships. And that's just pure evil. So, well, thank you, Meg, for coming on. I know your kids are at home and it's Thanksgiving. Everyone's getting ready. I know I am after this. I have to go to orthodontist appointment and then full on Thanksgiving mode. But thank you, Meg, for coming on. What are you doing next? What's your next story going to be about?
Still kind of just doing some more in the research phase, but I'll definitely will be in touch. Always kind of looking for just a few things in education, a few things in the prison system. I mean, we talk about gender ideology. I think what's going on it's very separate from education, but in prisons is just absolutely tragic. What's going on with female inmates being forced to share prison cells with men. So that's something that I'm also investigating right now too.
And before you leave, you just won an award, or you were in DC. So I want to highlight that. So what award did you win?
Yeah, my colleague and I, Caitlin Richardson, were the runners up, the first runners up for the Deo Prize, for the overall reporting prize. So it was our series that we had a 4-part series on how gender ideology is really was being pushed by the Biden administration in social services. And again, it all relates to it, because I know, and I'm sure you've talked to parents who kid was secretly groomed at school. Parents said, hey, we're not going to affirm you as another sex. And then someone from the school calls CPS and reports the parents. And then next thing you know, CPS is at the parents' door. And unfortunately, if they're have been trained in some of these interventions, it's likely that they may try to take the child from from their parents for not quote unquote affirming them. So it was
That was
really a
huge.
tough story to write. It was a very tragic story. But yeah, it was really, really nice to get that recognition.
Yes, well, you deserve it. That was a great series. That was a really good series. All right,
Thanks,
Manuel, I'll talk to you next week. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving
Thanks
to you
for
too.
coming on.
All right, thanks.
Oh, I love Meg. She's so sweet. Okay, and real quick, I'm not used to doing all this live. Let's add to stage our next guest. Hey guys.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing lives a little bit more. I've been recording, but this is actually live, for real live.
Yeah, and me and Avita are in the same spot today. So
I know, that's cool. That's nice. You guys getting ready for Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And I should have an introduction. I'm being a very rude host. We have Avita Duffy Alfonso and her husband, Michael Alfonso. And Michael is running for Congress in the 7th District of Wisconsin, yay. And Avita is on the, you have the Dan Bongino early
So
report.
I'm actually helping Michael. So I'm an independent and I'm helping out Michael. So that's what we're doing now. Michael's running for Congress and I'm here to support him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Avita, your mom is a like that. I mean, I should, because I love your mom so much, I'm putting her first. I know, yeah, your dad, he's the Secretary of Transportation. Okay, yay, I like it. I love him. He's great. And I loved what he said about his what he was saying about what flying, let's bring civility back. I did a whole long, because I'm flying so much now. So I'm like, my husband's laughing at me. I'm just like, I have so much to say about this.
Yeah, so it's a civility initiative. So he wants people, he says that the golden age of transportation starts with you, and he wants people in America to dress respectfully, to be polite. Maybe don't take your socks off on the plane so that it smells for your neighbor right next to you. You know, be courteous. It's sort of a public service announcement, and there may be some policies to follow. Certainly, he's not going to force everybody to wear a suit and tie on the airplane. But we have devolved a lot in the way that transportation used to be, how travel used to feel, to now where you're having like public brawls on the airplane or in the terminal. That has to end.
Yes, I 100% agree. I wrote, so I'll say my words. Don't go to the airport like you literally rolled out of bed. You just rolled right out of bed and just went straight to the airport. It's maybe because I'm used to, I would dress for Sunday, like church. I was just raised that you don't have to wear your Sunday best, but just be, presentable. I'm going somewhere. And I think being kinder, like I know Wisconsin, so people can be so rude, and just all the way around. It's just, let's all just be nicer, and maybe then it'll contribute so that we're not treated like cattle, and, just have sort of a dehumanizing aspect of travel. My friends and I had this whole discussion, like it's almost dehumanizing to travel by air.
Well, and Scarlett, the TSA plays a huge role in that. I mean, now I guess sometimes you don't have to take your shoes off, but you're treated like a terrorist in your own country. I think it's a violation of the 4th Amendment. You can't be subject to warrantless searches and seizures, and that's what the TSA does every single day. In addition to asking for your biometric data, which I always opt out of, and all your listeners should as well. When they ask you to do the face scan, you should say no. But unfortunately, TSA is not a part of the Department of Transportation. Some people think that it's actually a part of the Department of Homeland Security, which is Kristi Noem's job. So if it was under DOT, I think Sean Duffy may make some radical changes, potentially dismantle it, but it's not under his purview.
I wrote in my post, if you work for the TSA, could you act like you don't absolutely hate your job and wish you were anywhere else but exactly where you are, scowling at everyone as they walk through.
TSA is the best example of government work there is.
Yeah, it's just, and I can count sometimes when a TSA agent is nice, I'm almost like shocked, like, oh my gosh, they're actually being nice.
So if you are one of the good TSA agents, it's good to remember that if you're nice, people will be so much happier. They'll feel like it was the best travel experience they've ever had.
They will, like if they're not, especially nice to kids. That's what I noticed the most. how cruel, like, and mean to kids. You didn't take out, kind of like rolling their eyes, sighing, yelling at kids who forget to take their laptop out of their bag or something. It's like, they're kids. Like, you could just be nice. Don't scare them.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So, okay. So and then your mom is Fox and Friends, Rachel Campos Duffy, amazing, huge conservative voice. She, mother of 9, and just an adamant, wonderful, beautiful representative of the pro-life movement. Whenever she speaks, I like, oh my gosh, she just speaks right from the heart, and I appreciate what she says and how she's done a great job raising you, Vita, too. You're lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I
Oh.
think so too. I love her. She's wonderful. And I don't even know how she has the time to do all the things she does. She's weekend host of Fox and Friends, and she has Fox Noticias on the weekday, which is a Spanish language show. And then she's raising 9 kids. So
Yes.
it is crazy.
And she subs in all the time. She'll like
Oh,
sub
yeah.
in.
She's going to be hosting Sean Hannity tonight.
Oh, she is? Oh, yay. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'll tune in for that. Like, well, I'll pause the Hallmark Christmas.
Yeah.
In Christmas mode, I'm like, I want to tune out all the bad things. I just want to watch, like, go into a land of make believe.
Understandable.
Especially when, and I brought you on to talk about, because you're running for Congress, Michael, and we're talking about the National Education Association, 3 million members, the largest teachers union in the country. They have a congressional charter. That's something that needs to stop when they have trainings that have been exposed, like where they're focused on gender ideology. And I'll bring to the stage what I was talking about with Meg. Like this is a part of the training, the gender unicorn. They are going to hand out these coloring pages to little kids. This is meant for kids as young as 3 years old. In Wisconsin, the Department of Instruction will use this module. It's on their website. It's part of their module training, recommended for use in elementary schools, where they're going to tell kids to color in and talk about gender identity, gender expression, their sex assigned at birth, who they're physically attracted to. How do they feel today? Do they feel like a boy? Do they feel like a girl? This is dangerous emotional manipulation, psychological warfare on the minds of our kids. And this is something where Congress can act.
Yeah. So I would say this isn't just dangerous, it's insidious. Anyone that wants to teach 3-year-olds about sex education, there is something wrong with them. Only in schools would we allow children to be taught about sex. Imagine if some random person off the street started talking to your 5-year-old about sex. What would we call that? We would call it grooming. So to call it anything less than that, especially in Wisconsin, where we've had grooming scandals very recently, as Jill Underly very well knows, this needs to end immediately. And the only thing I would say about the congressional charter is by revoking it, I'm sorry it doesn't do more. I wish we could do more to combat this. It needs to be revoked immediately, but revoking it in essence only gets rid of the federal recognition of it. And I wish we could do more.
Yeah, I think the moving towards the steps where we're dismantling the Department of Education, and that's going to require a congressional act at the end of the day, where we need to just defund the entire Department of Education, because it was created, it was a function of the teachers union, a wish list. And ever since then, it's been used as a way to funnel money into the Democratic Party and to platform and, funnel a lot of money into these crazy activist organizations that provide materials like this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, the federal government has no business in education whatsoever. And anything we can do to get rid of the Department of Education faster, we should do. And it's kind of a founding principle that our founding fathers knew very well. The further the government gets away from the people it governs, the easier it is for it to become tyrannical. So frankly, we need to make sure that the schools are, at the worst, controlled at the state level, and at the best controlled by their local boards.
Yes, 100% true. I know the Secretary of Education was on a bunch of talk shows this weekend, kind of talking about the dismantling, and she just said that, like, we've got to just give the money back to the states. We've got to decentralize education. We've got to be innovative. And what are some other ways we could be innovative at creating different pathways, right, for kids? Like maybe they don't go to a 4-year, maybe they do a 2-year. There's a lot of options.
Yeah, and that's where school choice really comes into play. I would love to see the dollars follow the student rather than the school district. So these school districts, they know they have X amount of students, and they just say, whatever, we're going to get a certain amount of funding. Who cares how the students do in their educations? In fact, we'll actually get more money if our students perform worse, which is ridiculous. We need to make sure that the money follows the student. That way parents can keep their choices. And that's the only way to fix this situation.
And so you're running for the seventh district. So if we were to lose seats in Wisconsin, House seats, and we were to lose a majority, I mean, what would happen?
Well, I mean, it would be worrying. There's a lot of things that could happen. Right now we don't have the Supreme Court, which is very scary. We don't have the governorship. We currently have the Senate and the House, but some people think we might lose the Senate. I don't believe that. This talk of a blue wave, this was before Charlie Kirk got assassinated, before all sorts of young people have started working on grassroots, and people are very excited about this election. And Tony Evers, our governor, is doing everything he can to make people vote against him. He claims to be the education governor. He's the indoctrination governor. It's plain and simple.
Yes, we've got a really important race. We've got a governor's race, so it's going to be high turnout. And there's a lot of scandal in Wisconsin. We've got right now a couple great candidates. And there's Tom Tiffany, who's the seat that he is the current congressman in the 7th district. Now he's running for governor. Very popular in Western Wisconsin, can possibly get a huge voter turnout. And he's not afraid to talk about these culture war issues. And neither is Josh Schulman, who's also running. So we are putting front and center education, culture war issues, which I think is important in this race, as well as economics. And you talk to that very well as Gen Z. What is the message that you have and that Republicans should have in these elections about the economy?
Well, and you can see it from 2024. It's running on the economy. It's running on MAHA. It's running on culture issues. I mean, we can run on multiple things all at once. And each voting demographic has something that's more important to them. So, for example, young people, we're really concerned about how we're going to buy a house, how we're going to afford anything right now. And I think Trump is doing a really good job. I mean, if you look at inflation numbers, they were 5.5% during the Biden administration. That's just the average. That's not even how high it got. And under Trump, it's 2%. Now, the thing to remember is inflation is a rate. So prices are still going up. They're just going up slower. So we need time for jobs to catch up to that. But I think one of the demographics that we should seek to really win over is suburban moms. And the education topics are where it matters. I mean, women they think about their children every single day. So if you want to win women over, you have to talk about the issues that matter to them. And right now, the Democrats are not the reasonable Democrats of the 1970s. No, they are radical gender ideology, racial warfare psychos. And that's the message that we need to deliver.
No, they really are. I mean, when you look at, and I'll put up, I'm going to put this up on the screen, but what was uncovered by Defending Education in this professional development that includes Wisconsin educators, WEAC is adjacent to the NEA, to talk about expressions of oppression, not to talk about the NAEP scores, not to talk about the fact that Wisconsin ranks last, absolute last in educating Black and Brown students in the country. We only had, I believe it was 5% of Black children in fourth grade read at grade level in Wisconsin. That was the lowest. It's abysmal. Instead of discussing how can we teach kids to read, how can we help kids with math, how can we get them at grade level after we have a 10-year decline and a historic just plummet in these scores in America as far as American children.
Yeah.
They're talking about expressions of oppression, structural oppression, institutional oppression, internalized oppression, interpersonal oppression. And they're going to have teachers sit through struggle sessions where they give them 10 ridiculous scenarios, all of whom, I mean, several of them sound like they are specifically targeting Moms for Liberty. If this group of moms, whoever they may be, come to your school board meeting, this is what you should do. I mean,
Well, congratulations. They're talking directly about you. You guys must be doing a great job.
Well, and we were actually, Michael and I were reading into like the charter and what the NEA is supposed to be all about. They say that they're about elevating the character and advancing the interests of the profession of teaching and promoting the cause of education in the United States. And what's fascinating, Scarlett, is everything they vote on has nothing to do with children, with education, not even about the teachers themselves, their own collective bargaining. I mean, that's part of it, but they seem to be like almost laser focused on political ideology, indoctrination, supporting Democrat institutions. They voted to support the No Kings movement. They use the term fascist to describe President Trump. They're fighting against and creating workarounds to that SCOTUS ruling, which said that parents have the right to opt out of radical curriculums that go against religious beliefs. So these are crazy radical individuals who do not care at all about the education of children, which is what they were intended to be for. And you're right, WEAC is the affiliate of the NEA. And in Wisconsin, a lot of you remember just the way that our capital was occupied and destroyed in the Act 10 protest, the Scott Walker recall protest. The NEA through WEAC was funneling tons of money and resources and people to keep those radical protests going, which, by the way, Michael and I have said time and time again, that was the prequel to the BLM rioting.
Yes.
This is all the same thing. And it's a disgrace that they have a federal charter.
It is. Becky Pringle spoke in July at their national conference, and she sounded as if she was at a tent revival.
Yeah.
So she might, like just unglued, ranting, raving about her hatred for Trump and how they have to get Trump. And at some point, when in a session, a teacher from Texas said, could we talk about strategies for success for kids as far as reading and math? And that teacher that asked that innocent question was told, no, shut up. We don't have time for that. We've got to get Trump.
Yeah.
How can this organization have a congressional charter? And it's unreal. They called voters, people that voted for Trump, villains in this training document. They call them villains. So parents, if you vote for Trump, you're a villain. You're a bad guy. That is not appropriate. It's not appropriate at all, but it's especially not appropriate when these are the people that our kids are going to spend time with, a lot of time with, for a whole year. And that's scary to me.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, this is the danger of bureaucratic and even political experience. These people are in their jobs for 20 years, and all they do is try to find a new way to justify their six-figure salary. It's ridiculous. Anyone with common sense could walk into the education department and say, I think the three most important things, and really the three only things to teach kids, are reading, writing, and math. If they can't do that, what are you doing?
Yes.
Well, and Scarlett, I'll just add that why are the teachers radical? Well, I mean, of course, we have these institutions. The NEA is the largest teachers union in the country, but also the teachers' colleges are radical as well. I think a lot of this, we focus on the childhood education part of it, and that's super important. But another big issue is that our college system, the university system is entirely broken. And they're the ones that are producing these radical teachers who are then indoctrinating the youth of America. And a lot of these schools get federal funding, and they sit on billion-dollar endowments that are exempt from taxes. So it's kind of absurd that we aren't going after the colleges as well. They have to be part of this conversation because they are entirely broken and are the source really of the problem.
Yeah, and then there are in order to become a superintendent of a district, there'll be requirements that you have to have a PhD in education. And in order to be a licensed teacher, you have to go through such and such college of education. I think that we need to change those standards so that we can hire somebody who has a degree in history to be a social studies teacher. And that way just kind of bypass some of the colleges of education, which are the most radical. Now, there's cultural Marxism in Madison, in pretty much whatever you're doing, but it is deeply, deeply entrenched in education. I mean, the number one book for those who are education majors is Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. And it's a Marxist guide that was praised by Chairman Mao.
Yep.
This is their Bible. This book is their Bible. They view teaching as political. And again, the NEA, there was a teacher that was a recipient of Teacher of the Year, and she said, teaching is political. Right there, out loud, teaching's political. And gee, I wonder what side they're on.
Yeah, well, actually, I was homeschooled. My dad never went to college. He taught me math. And when I went into high school, I was 2 grades ahead in math. Turns out you don't need a degree to teach people, especially at the lower levels. I mean, come on. Who among us doesn't know how to read, write, or do math? It's a joke that they require these degrees. And the only reason they do it is so that they have extra time to indoctrinate these people coming into the school system.
And you're right about homeschooling. We have to protect homeschooling because it is under assault. And Wisconsin, a lot of homeschooling associations have fought very hard for the gains that we have in Wisconsin. And I talk to homeschooling moms all the time that are very nervous about the encroachment of the federal government and state government on what they're doing. So we have to be vigilant about protecting the rights of homeschooling families.
Yeah, I guess the federal government and the state government just wants to make sure that they're the ones teaching your kids how not to read.
I also say, Scarlett, like when we're talking about the education system and the rot, like there is, and this is like so much deeper, and it's hard to even address with policy prescriptions. But when the university system began in the Middle Ages, it was it began with monks in monasteries where people were seeking the truth, as in the truth of Jesus Christ. And in the original institutions of our country, I mean, I'm thinking about Harvard and Yale and all the Ivy Leagues, their founding principles were in the Christian faith and in seeking truth itself, which is God himself. And they have completely abandoned that guiding light, that guiding principle. And instead, they teach people that truth doesn't exist at all. And you get postmodernists like Foucault and Derrida in the education system, which radicalize young people into really, I mean, believing that it's impossible to find the truth, that you can seek out your truth, and that it's all about this cultural Marxist indoctrination, which is inherently actually anti-Christian. So there's a spiritual rot as well. And I think as taxpayers, we should not be funding institutions at all who have abandoned the truth itself. Even Harvard had to explicitly edit its like its statement, its foundational statement, to take out Jesus Christ from it. That's a huge problem. That's actually the source.
Yes, the philosophical underpinnings of gender ideology, Judith Butler, Foucault, Derrida, others, if you read their biographies, I would say, I don't know Judith Butler as much, but Foucault, Derrida, they're pedophiles. Like they are. They are. Like they go off onto islands, and I would be banned if I were to talk about the things that they did. They wrote this philosophical tenet in order to advance their own kink, their own kind of just evil longings. And so this is what's really bad. If you dive deep into this, we're right now surface level. If you dive deep into this is about breaking children like just crushing them, breaking them so that they are more susceptible to predators, to make them easier prey.
And breaking the bonds between parents and children. And that's a huge part of what the NEA does, is teaching teachers and education institutions how to circumvent parents and queer a child outside of their control. I mean, it is totally a breakdown of the family, and it's purposeful.
And when they ask, like, why would the feminists, why would women abandon actual females in place of pretend ones, the trans, what is this? Why is all this happening? And I think it's to crush and destroy women, because women are the most powerful cultural force. Women will set those standards. Women will set those moral norms. And if they can crush us and demoralize us and confuse us and convince us to not have children, then Western civilization, that's it. You crush women, and then to men, you basically take away all masculinity. It's just very weird.
Well, and it's obvious that they hate our civilization by way of what they teach of American history. I mean, we're heading into Thanksgiving right now. It's in a few days. What do they teach about Thanksgiving? I know when I was in school, and I didn't even go to a public school, I went to a Catholic school, and all I heard about was race Marxism and how we're on stolen land, and America is an inherently racist country. Like, and the whole point of Thanksgiving, right, is it was the Indians and the Pilgrims coming together and sharing a meal. That gets completely overridden by the school system, which only wants to talk about oppression and systemic racism and how our country is something to be ashamed of. And of course it's not. It's civilizational suicide is what they're teaching.
Yeah, the NEA, another part of, because there's like 60 pages, they talk about liberated ethnic studies. They talk about this whole liberation movement, which would basically teach kids, and Michael, teach kids to hate America. It's basically your family, your grandparents came here from Cuba. They escaped communism. They are basically just trying to insert it into America. Where do we go from here if we fall to Marxism?
Well, and that really is the trick to all of this. These ideas are so radical, so ridiculous that anyone who wasn't had it instilled on them since they were 2 years old would smell how crazy it is. But that's how they do it. They go after the kids because the parents are way, way, way too smart, especially in Wisconsin or the North Woods. They're never going to get parents to conform to this kind of junk, but they can sneak it into the kids, and it is the most insidious plan, and that's the only way they can get it through.
So Michael, tell us, because your grandparents probably told you stories, what is it really like to live in a country ruled by Marxists?
It's a nightmare. And my grandparents were lucky enough to get out before the borders were shut and everyone was locked in, but you can see the writing on the wall. Cuba was an amazing country in 1920. It was just ticking up and up and up, and it reached this point where everybody got so complacent. They're like, we have our freedoms, we can do anything we want. Let's start talking about the oppressed classes and making everything a race lens or a class lens. And that's how it happens. It's slowly but surely. And if you're lucky, you see the writing on the wall. But America is the last bastion of freedom. My grandparents had somewhere to run to. We do not. This is the final frontier. We can never, ever let them win.
And there's such thing. I mean, Michael, your dad talks all the time about like the lie of equity, right? People naturally want there to be equality and for everybody to have a chance, and they will twist that sentiment into this idea that everything should be equitable. And the problem is that what collectivism does every single time is create equitable suffering for everybody. So no one's happy, but we're all not happy, so I guess it's equal or equitable, and it's really a miserable existence. People are, I mean, in Venezuela right now, people are eating dogs and rats and selling their own children. I mean, there's a nightmare anywhere communism is tried.
Yes, and equity in education means our kids are equally not prepared for
We all
school.
can't read.
They all can't read. You know, before there was certain groups that couldn't read and we should help them, but instead it's like, no, we need equity, so we're going to make sure everyone is equally unable to read, illiterate, and not reading at grade level, not able to do math. You know, where you hear stories in California where graduating seniors can't do second grade math, 20%, and 60% can't do 8th grade math, and they require a year or two of remedial math and remedial English. So it's a 4-year degree, supposedly. If you have to spend 2 years just doing remedial work, that now becomes 6 years. How much debt are you going into? That debt you'll carry that for the rest of your life because you didn't get educated. So that honestly, there needs to be lawsuits, financial lawsuits, because if you have to pay for 2 years of remedial work because your high school didn't educate you, then we should be able to sue the high schools. Parents should be able to sue the high schools for the cost of the college tuition. You didn't do your job. My kid can't even do math. And I've heard stories in Wisconsin. I have heard stories where parents will tell me that their kids graduated and they can't even get into community college because they cannot, they're functionally illiterate. And and the parents didn't know, the kids just kept getting passed. And this is a crisis. But what Marxism needs is a whole population that can't read very well, because that's the best way because they're lies. And you need to not be able to think critically in order to accept what they're telling you. And look at Mandami. I think what you're seeing in New York, that is how it happens. And that's where I'll lead into this. When you have young people feeling that they're not being heard, that there's not economic opportunities, that they are like swimming in debt because they got a degree in liberal arts, and they feel like no one talked to them, that spending $80,000 a year on a degree that is not marketable, what that would mean. And compounding interest, what does that mean? And suddenly they're waking up to this and they hear someone like Mandami and they're like, oh, my savior, solution. So
yeah, honestly, I would say that a lot of the issues or the reason why young people are turning towards Mamdami's is because at least he's crazy. All of his solutions are completely incorrect. However, every problem he points to is a serious problem. Why can't young people afford homes? How come they can't afford to get married or have a good job and raise kids? When these are the messages that young people care about. And that's why Donald Trump got elected. Yes. He talked about these issues. And frankly, I've said this kind of jokingly, I agree with Bernie Sanders on almost every problem he points to. Healthcare is too expensive. Rent is too expensive. Homes are too expensive. The problem is the solutions. So if the right wingers want to win elections, especially with young people, we read an article this morning in the Epoch Times that says young people, so Gen X and lower, for the first time are going to be the majority of the electorate. These are the issues they care about. And if Republicans keep talking about marginal tax breaks or things that nobody cares about, they will lose.
Yeah, you're right. And that's a great point. So we need more Gen Z voices. We need more Gen Z running for office, participating, because they are now going to be the voters. They're going to be making these decisions. And they also have to understand how the government created these very problems that they are dealing with. They just don't understand because they haven't learned these things. They were too busy like coloring in the gender unicorn picture to learn basic economics and how the economy works and what happens when you just flood the country with all this easy money. You know, these are kind of hard concepts. So they need to understand that the problems that they have are because of the government. So the solutions cannot be the government.
Yeah, and really, it's not as complicated as someone might make it sound. I mean, really, all we need is someone who will go out and say, hey, every single industry the government has subsidized or invested in, the prices have skyrocketed. Look at rent, look at education, look at healthcare, and look at the industries that the government didn't subsidize. televisions, cable, phones, everything has gone down in price. And it's not complicated. We just need someone who will go out there and explain it very simply. And young people resonate with the message. That's why you saw so many young people vote for Trump in 2024. But it's also the reason why you saw so many young people vote for Mamdani, is because they just want to hear someone who has the remotest idea of a plan to solve these issues.
And they're looking for authenticity, right? That's why you have to, you know, just point out the elephant in the room. You can't say, oh, everything's just wonderful. You have to say, like, listen, here's an issue. We're pointing it out, but the solution here is wrong. Like, for example, formula. A can of formula is insanely expensive. And why? Because the government subsidizes it. Like, there's no reason why a small can of formula should cost $40. But because the government is subsidizing it, that's what it is. And it's
and something I've noticed a lot is during the last year of the Biden administration, inflation was crazy, and the Biden administration said, there's no inflation. What are you talking about? You're crazy if you think there's inflation. And I've seen some Republicans who've kind of taken that approach, saying prices aren't up. No, they are. But the reason they're up is because of Biden. This inflation, if you look at it on a graph, has been going down, but prices are still going up. It takes a while for the economy to get back. And frankly, Secretary Bessent has been saying we project almost 6% GDP growth. That's how we come back from inflation. The path down is very quick and very easy, but the path up takes time. So it's important for anyone who's running on the Republican side to say, yes, prices are up, but their wages are starting to come up. They're starting to follow. They're slightly slower, but have faith. Things are getting better. They really are. Just look at gas prices. They're already down.
Yeah, they are. The gas prices are down. Anecdotally, I'll say, because my daughter is moving back to Wisconsin, and we're like just starting to peak at the housing market. And this is the first time that first-time homes are starting to come online, and the prices are they're going down, and more of these homes that could be flipped, starter homes, they're coming online. You can kind of see that it's moving. Things are starting to move. Like that thought is happening. It's going to take, there's a lot of different avenues. My husband is the one, he's the business one that will explain like some of these things to me, but he feels confident. He just says it's going to take time. He's hoping by next year that the housing market should be a great deal better.
And he's totally right. And the key is to tell young people, don't jump ship. These things take time. Everything is happening the way it needs to happen for prices to come down and for wages to come up. We're doing the Trump administration has already shut the border, and they're doing everything to deport migrants. Now, I'll admit they've reached a lot of pushback from ridiculous governors like Pritzker or Newsom. So that's going to take some time. But everything is trending the right way. So don't jump ship. Have faith.
Well, I think that people are like desperate, and that is why a lot of them are attracted to what Zohran Mamdani is saying. And when Michael and I watched that meeting with the president and Zohran, and how kind of chummy it was, and everyone was sort of surprised by that, we were not surprised at all, because the two of them are populists, right? Like they get in the meeting, they're both saying these things are all problems, and they agree on them. There's constructive and there's just destructive populism. President Trump, I would say, is part of constructive populism, and Zohran Mamdani is destructive populism. And a big key with how to address a lot of the economic problems that we're seeing, even problems in the classroom, is mass deportations. That's something that Zohran Mamdani is not interested in at all. But if you're a teacher in a classroom and half of your students don't speak English, how are you supposed to operate in that classroom? How are you going to keep everybody on the same page? And then the students who are English speakers, whose parents are not illegal immigrants, end up having a real disservice to them, and they fall behind because their classroom is inherently being dragged down by students who don't speak the language. So it's a huge problem. And to point that out to people, to say, hey, mass immigration is driving driving wages down. You're flooding the job market. It's creating problems in the classroom and strains on entitlements and on our even the food stamps. If you're able to point that out, people will start to see what you're saying. But if you ignore all the problems and say, oh, there is no problem and housing is totally fine and it's okay for BlackRock to buy up single family homes, well, then you're not going to reach anyone. That's not a message that's going to resonate.
Nope, that angers me so much, that situation. I think you're right, the two populists. And then one has real world experience, an entrepreneur, somebody that has like just the most like business experience, negotiation, understanding of the economy. Another has never been in the private sector. And I think you see that a lot. The populists on the left, they don't operate in the private sector. They've never owned a business really. They've stayed in the whole bureaucracy, or activism. And so they just don't know how things work. And then they dictate, we're going to do this. And then that doesn't work. And then we need more money. And eventually the host runs dry. There's only so long that you can like, as locusts come, eventually the crop's gone. Eventually they destroy everything and they have to go find another one. And that's what happens with this. But Trump he has that populist message, but all the real world experience and surrounded by conservatives, and he's become more and more conservative as time goes on. That is what we need. You need someone that is, and I think that's just a good blueprint when you're running.
Honestly, I would say, I don't even think it's Trump's experience. I think it comes from the fact that he's an American. His parents were American. He understands what makes this country great. Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim Marxist from Uganda. He doesn't understand American principles. So yeah, it's great to have people who, have worked in the private sector for 60 years and are billionaires, but it's not complicated. You just have to understand that we're Americans. We fix problems on our own. We don't get the government involved in every single little thing because it messes up everything it does. It's so simple, and Trump understands that because he's a good American. That's what the really big difference is.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. And the other thing with Mamdani that we have to contend with the fact that the media he made him to be a pop icon. You saw that the people, influencers voting for him, they've got high-end bags, they've got, the newest phone there, and they're like, they kind of made it this sort of trendy thing, like voting for him is really cool, because they're going to be the Marie Antoinettes of this. Like, they get to, they're going to be on this other level in communism. There's this small group that gets to live better than everyone else. And, so it was just so fake. And that was really phony. And I think that some kids sort of fell for that. Like, oh, it was the cool thing to do. Oh, he's so edgy.
Well, he comes from an upper class background, as with many of his supporters. And what's interesting is he wants to, have free transit in the city. And so all these buses are now, of course, going to be full of homeless people who are just going to live in the heated buses. It's going to be a lot less safe, a lot more crowded. And these people who supported him, these elites in New York, including him, do not take public transit. Nope. So they're not going to experience that at all. It's sort of like, okay, yeah, we're going to feel good because we're making it free without contending with any of the consequences of it. But this is, of course, really what communists always do. Collectivists throughout human history have been sort of this upper crust elite class who feel sort of shameful and guilty about their station in life. And so they think that they're helping the underclasses when in fact they are, of course, impoverishing and creating suffering for everyone. And that's what I think is about to happen in New York. And so I hope that maybe that can be ground zero for everybody seeing how bad collectivism is, and we don't want to try it anywhere else. But again, I don't know if that's going to happen because his messaging was excellent. I do think that it was. He did a great job. He was, if you think about what was Andrew Cuomo running on, I don't even know. Like, his slogan was completely forgettable.
His slogan was, "At least I'm not Mamdani."
The coloring of his Brandon was
That's true.
I mean, Zohran Mamdani had excellent signs. He was talking about affordability. There was a coolness factor that I think Republicans need to replicate. I mean, they really do.
They do.
We can do it better because, of course, our solutions are real solutions.
They actually work.
They actually work. So
I think you're right, Evita. That's 100% a great point. You may not like the message and you may not love the messenger, but that the message was, it looked, the aesthetic of it and the campaign that he ran, you can't deny that he ran a good campaign. The aesthetic was good. The solutions are terrible, but the message that he was trying to get across, some of the core tenets of that, people felt it. It resonated. So replicating that, but inserting the right ideas and the right solutions would be a good thing. Don't discount. I wouldn't completely discount that. And I think I hear people that do like, oh, it's a one-off. Oh, that's just New York. Oh, just blue. Don't. That's dangerous thinking. You need to look at those elections, especially the one in New York, and realize, take some of the things that worked there and apply them, but offering the right solutions. I 100% agree.
And
We've got to be more tech savvy too. We've got to be more tech savvy.
and have good candidates too, Scarlett. I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel about this, and maybe this is a controversial take, but I thought the choice between Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo was just like the worst choice possible. It was like saying, here, vote for Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. Well, I just wouldn't vote. And so I don't blame a lot of New Yorkers for not voting. I think that they should have let the Republican candidate actually be the candidate instead of instead of Cuomo coming in as a third party option. I think that's really what ruined it. He had no right. He had lost the primary already. But I think good candidates really matter. And there was nothing interesting or exciting. And actually, it was very negative. Everything around Cuomo as this grandma killer. He's a terrible guy.
Pretend he didn't put your grandma in the, when your grandma was in an old age home or in something.
Scandals of women. I mean, it's just terrible.
Yes,
It's
the scandals of
You have to
women.
have good candidates.
When I think of COVID, I think of two people, Anthony Fauci and Andrew Cuomo. I mean, he's never going to come back from that. Anyone that thought he could doesn't know people. They just don't understand.
Yeah, you're right. And like there was the scandals with women and the fact that he put COVID patients into homes with the elderly. And like everyone's supposed to forget that. Forget what happened to your grandmother. Forget what he did to so many people that died needlessly in New York hospitals. Forget all of that. Forget the way that he shut down New York. Now we just don't like Mamdani, so vote for him. So I think a lot of people, that was just too hard to swallow for a lot of people. So and another good point, this was very divided. There were three people in it, and he didn't win a majority of anything. The turnout was low. If he were running, if it was a good quality one person running against him, I think it would have definitely been closer or perhaps even a different outcome. But
Yeah, and this is what happens when, like Evita said, bad candidates find their way into things like this. I mean, the people of New York got to choose between the grandma killer, the communist, and a guy with a goofy red hat. I mean, I don't know.
I liked Curtis
she
Lewa.
does.
I liked him a lot. I thought he was so fascinating. And here's about Curtis Lewa. If this was 30 years ago, even though he's a quirky guy, I think he would have won. He's a genuine New Yorker. He was, dedicated his life to keeping the subway safe. I mean, he was a fascinating, interesting, thought very sincere person. The problem is that New York is no longer full of New Yorkers. They're full of migrants. And so it's a completely different place, radically different than it was 30 years ago. And I feel that way about a lot of America, that we are changing rapidly, and demographics is destiny, and we're heading down a very bad path. This is why I'm glad the borders are closed, and why we need 100 million people deported. And I think we need limits on legal immigration as well. This has a major impact on who we are as a country, what kind of people we elect. It matters.
And when we're talking about a lot of these NAEP scores and what's happening in education over the last 10 years, well, what else has been happening over the last 10 years? Record amounts of immigration. How many kids are going into American schools that can't speak English? And what effect is that having on classrooms? How when half the kids in a class can't speak English, and the other, how does a teacher teach to that class?
They don't, and we're seeing the effects of that.
And even if it's less than that, then so, and on top of that, then in Madison, and I just had reported this on social media last week. So they had Madison, Wisconsin, total of $600 million in referendum money. They had so much money that they wanted a new logo after they won. They hired a firm from Kentucky, not a Wisconsin firm, to create a logo. Not too long later, like I think even maybe days later, someone gifts them a logo. But they had made this contract, they fulfilled it, they spent $100,000. They didn't use the logo because these aren't business people. They don't read contracts. They didn't even read the contract. They voted on it without reading the contract. Oh, we're gonna just hire this company $100,000. They get gifted a logo. This is in the news and no one cares. I'm so shocked. This is monopoly money. Monopoly money.
This is what happens when when the government spends other people's money. They just don't care. I mean, frankly, which one of us has ever signed a contract without reading it? It's common sense. Every single issue we're facing, maybe 60 years ago, we were having real debates about issues. Right now, it is purely common sense. Do you want your kids to learn how to read? Do you want your education people to actually read the contracts they sign? And do you want Americans to thrive? It's so simple.
And when they'll say to you, Michael, you win the election, you're now a congressman, and you hear, we need more money. We need more money. In Madison, again, they have these referendums. They all of this money. They lost over 100 students. The Madison Metropolitan School District. They're projected to lose a lot more, and they're putting $500 million into new buildings.
Yeah, this is what happens when the money is just, like you said, monopoly money. So closer to home, Wausau, where my parents still live, they are running a deficit. The actual city is running a deficit budget. And they still found enough money in the budget to put a methadone clinic downtown. It's ridiculous. Basically, all of these agencies, it reminds me of The Office when they were talking about budget surpluses. Like, well, if we don't spend it, they'll take it away next year. So we got to find some methadone clinic to open up on the 400 block in Wausau.
Yeah, they have to find a way to spend it, because if they don't spend it, then they can't justify. So they have to, like, what could we do? And they're focused on buildings. I don't care about the building as long as it's safe. Don't want lead in the paint, whatever, like it's safe. But I'm so tired of, we're going to build this or build that building. I don't care. Just teach kids. Just give them a good education. And as long as there's, in Wisconsin, we don't even have air conditioning in most buildings for the schools. But if it has heat, you need heat, definitely need that. But if it's a safe building, well-maintained, I don't care about the buildings. Educate kids. But all they ever focus on is, let's get a new curriculum. Let's bring in another equity firm. Let's build more buildings. Because that's easier to do than solve the actual difficult crisis that children can't read. That's hard to do. But it's not as hard as people think. If you just do the work and you get a good teacher. There's so many stories where kids go to a charter school, or they school choice to go to private school, and they're in a year, everything can be turned around and they can start that path. So and even if they've graduated, we need to come up with ways. If a kid's graduating and didn't get that education they need, I think we can come up with solutions for them so that they don't have to feel alone. They don't have to feel like they're going to be left behind. I also think we should be able to sue school districts, because if my kid graduates and goes to college and they have to spend the first 2 years just getting a remedial education, meaning they're in college for 6 years, I want to sue the school district for not doing their job and leaving my kid with the tab.
Well, one of the advantages, and as much as I hate the education department and I would like to see it gone, at least while it's in place, we should start restricting the money to the places where schools aren't learning how to read.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're not teaching students how to read or do math, we're not going to continue funding you. We're not going to give you more money so you can hire more administrators and more guidance counselors that don't actually teach anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. We just have to, there's think tanks all over. Like I think we have to just come up with common sense solutions. But the number one thing is cut off the money. That's all they care about. Money is the only language that they speak. They're going to continue on with the gender unicorns until they lose the funding, until they lose their charters, and until we, just get rid of the Department of Education.
And that's why you need elected officials who really mean business and aren't afraid about losing the next election. I mean, look at the backlash Scott Walker had when he even mentioned teachers' unions and collective bargaining rights. This is the kind of battles that every congressperson, every state assemblyman, state senator, and every governor needs to know that they're going to take on regardless of what happens to them in the future, because it's not about you. You're a representative. You need to do what's right no matter what happens. And that's why it's so important to have Christian leaders who understand why the things they're voting for are important.
All right. And so as we come to the end, Michael and Evita, what is Moms for Liberty? We're focused on education and parental rights, and at the state level, at the national level, at the local level, though, at school board level too. What is the message that you think Gen Z wants to hear about education? Because now they are going to be the biggest voting bloc. What is going to resonate with them?
Well, I think it's just simply that the money that goes to education isn't going to be wasted. All of the issues that Gen Z is facing is pretty much all comes from government overspending. So if we can show young people that the money that is going to schools is being used to pay the hardworking teachers who are actually working to teach students, that's going to resonate with them. They hate the waste. We send $50 billion to Ukraine a year, and we send money to Afghanistan for transgender goat surgeries or who knows what. They just want to see the waste stop.
Yeah.
And I would also add that for Gen Z, left and right wing individuals, the cost of college education is a huge deal. It's gotten out of control in the 1980s. In today's money, college tuition was $2,000 to $3,000. Now it's $10,000 or more. And this is because of the government's involvement in student loans. And it's also because the schools have massive amounts of administrators. At many of our Ivy Leagues, there are more administrators than there are students. They're irresponsible with the federal funding that they receive, with the student tuition dollars that they receive. And so the government should stop subsidizing these institutions. And I think you'll start to see the tuition prices come down as they start to become more financially responsible. And if they don't have the ability to jack up the price and have students take out these federal loans that then they can never even default on, you have it for the rest of your life. Bringing down the price of education, which can and should happen, is also a big deal and a bipartisan one.
Yeah, they need to feel like this wasn't easy money to get, and that there's going to be a repayment process, and the tuition needs to be lower. I don't even understand how this system is. It can't continue. You cannot continue to pay $60,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year for a college education. Sometimes now it's not uncommon for kids to take 5 years. It's just too much. And then what degree are they getting? If you're going to be a doctor, even then, I would say, go to a state school, start off at a community college, find different ways to not spend that much. But then then professional education, that's a fortune too. So you graduate, and that's just an insane amount of debt. To graduate with a mortgage, you graduate with a mortgage. I think that is psychologically destabilizing for a young person, and we need to do something about that. And it's hard for parents to save, to put their kids to college, to help out at least. And not every kid needs to go to a four-year college. We need to have better programs and pathways. And I know Secretary of Education has been really talking about that there are other pathways. There's pathways to two-year colleges, to different fields, using the military, going into the military, and then going into your chosen field. So I think we've got to have all hands on deck and all sorts of options.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, guys. Well, this has been great. Thank you for coming on and talking about these really important issues. We have a great size audience tied for like number 2 right now, which is awesome that this message is getting out. And I think a lot of parents listening to it, and hopefully a lot of Gen Z, Gen Alpha are listening. And
Well, they're probably still in school right now,
You
Gen
should give
Alpha.
your website and your ex.
oh yeah, let's do that.
Alfonso for Wisconsin, that's my website, and Mike Alfonso with WI is my ex account.
Okay,
You
yes.
want to follow what we're doing on the campaign trail and all the different ideas we have to actually right the ship and to make sure that prices come down and to make sure that families can afford to have homes and actually build a future where they were from. That you'll see it all on X.
Yep. And I will put all of that in the comments as well. I'm used to recording, so I didn't do that. But yeah, follow Michael, follow him on X. It's really easy. Then you can see he has a great ad. I love your ad. It's really well done. It's really
She had a lot to do with that. She's the artist.
great job.
We so appreciate you, Scarlett. You're amazing. You're an American patriot. Like I said, last time, you're like Google with all the facts, everything. You got it all down. So Scarlett, I would like to see you run for office someday. I don't know if that's going to happen.
Oh, your mom has said that to me as well. It could happen. It could happen someday. That would be a scary thing for a lot of the people on the left. That would be very scary.
They wouldn't like that, but I would love it. And I said to my mom in like, when we first met in 2022 over the phone, we had met, and I told her, I said, there's this woman named Scarlett and she's amazing in Wisconsin. I think she should run for office. And then like 2 years later, she said, do you know this woman named Scarlett? I think she should run for office. I'm like, yes, I know who Scarlett is. So we both have independently said, we think you should run. You're an amazing American patriot, doing such good for Wisconsin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm about to issue a press release about WTMJ4 because if you don't know what a brony is, unfortunately, I now do. And there was a conference where WTMJ4 had a reporter at this conference of grown men who dress up like My Little Pony characters. And it's basically it's a whole grooming thing. It took me all of like 5 minutes to Google and find like a lot of disturbing information. And they're like, this is a family-friendly event in Milwaukee. Come on down.
Just like the naked bike ride in Madison is a family-friendly event. It's a joke.
Yeah, do you want to bring Evita, want to bring your brothers and sisters to go watch grown men dressed as Princess Sparkle Pony?
Well, a friend of mine, Kylie at the Federalist, she actually reported that she just happened to be because she lives in Madison, downtown, walking, naked bike parade comes by, and there was a child, not just there were children watching, of course, there's a child participating in it. I mean, this is like absurdity. Like, and even if you go to a Pride event, this was not a Pride event. This is like the naked bike thing. But the Pride events are like this too. It's public nudity. It's disgusting sexual acts in public, and children are present and or participating. It's a huge problem. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. So I'm like, we're putting out a press release on this. I want a demand a retraction. This was not family friendly, and you should not have directed families towards it. And you should not, again, Wisconsin, hello, we have a real problem with groomers and adults that are like facilitating it because they want to be, belonging, inclusion. I'm a nice person. I need to virtue signal. They're so interested in virtue signaling that they don't do the work and realize that they are promoting pedophilia and grooming, and it needs to stop.
And what's nicer than protecting innocence? Isn't that our job? I mean, come on.
It is. This is dangerous stuff because kids, little 7-year-old kids, I have stories, Googling My Little Pony, and they'll get off into this crazy world. And the kids aren't protected, and we got to do something. So Anyways, that's my TED Talk. All right, guys, have a good day. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday. I know I will. After this, I'm taking a break. I'm in mom, grandma mode. So
Love that. Well, you too, Scarlett. You have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for having
thank
us
you for
on.
having us.
bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
That was, I love talking to them. That was great. So thank you all for tuning into this live stream. We are going to re-air this tomorrow. And along with, I have a conversation with Ryan Walters, which is really good with the Teacher Freedom Alliance. So this is Scarlett Johnson Unleashed, presented by Moms for Liberty. Thanks for joining. And remember, you got to keep fighting for kids. Bye now.